Hello, everybody. Today is day 5 of the Queso Cup, first split in this fun Teams Edition, and it's going to be a banger of a day. Maybe the most important day, as some teams will decide if they stay alive in this competition or if they go home, because our leaderboard right now, undefeated, no surprises here. PUIGINS on the lead, Tribe Gaming right behind them, also at 4 wins. A lot of action there in the middle, but the big story at the bottom, SK Gaming and Hype Boys, both with the big bagel so far, both desperately needing wins today in order to stay in the mix. And of course, that'll be a tall order for these teams as they have some very difficult outs on the day. Hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm Rich Slayton. I cast Clash Royale a whole bunch, and today is day 5 of the league phase. 2 more days after this one. So let's call it, there's 3 days left in this league phase to decide if you are moving on to this competition or if you are going home early. As I said before, this is split number 1 of the Queso Cup. 2023 started off with some invited teams, some qualified teams, and of course, 1 community voted team. We are in the 5th of 7 days in our league phase, where it's a round robin format. All of those teams cannot move on. Only 6, the top 6, can make it onto the next stage. 2 will be eliminated, and a little bit left to decide who those 2 will be. Top 6 will move on to a single bracket, best of 5 matches rather than best of 3 sets, which is going to be wild April 22nd and April 23rd as these teams all go for that $15,000 prize pool. Of course, this is just split 1 of the competition. Split 2, our summer split, will be July and August. And then end of the year, a last chance qualifier, followed by the big grand finals with $65,000 on the line throughout this year, which will be very, very cool. And speaking of very cool, we have someone super fun joining us on the stream today. Coming back by popular demand, that's right, it's SB on the stream. SB, hey, how are you? I'm so excited to have you on here. I hope you're ready for a big day.
Hey Rich, thank you for that wonderful intro. Yeah, I had a great time last week, and I'm excited to cast these great games today too.
Well, speaking of great games, we have no time to waste. Game number 1 kicking off. Let's jump right into it as Tribe Gaming starts our day up against Strangers. Tribe Gaming, again, currently tied for the lead with 4 wins. Strangers in the hunt right now, and they have been an interesting up and down team with I think a lot of exciting newer players to this level of gameplay.
Yeah, definitely, I agree, Rich. And I think, like this match is starting, I think we're going to see a lot of Mega Knight wall breakers today. It's even more popular on ladder than last week, and I think it's just growing in popularity in the comp scene as well. It's so strong right now. And
yep, we'll see it throughout the day. And as we kind of saw in the last couple of days, I'm wondering how much that's going to continue to lead to a rise in the play of Giant Skelly Graveyard, Giant Skeleton RG, a lot of those ways to kind of control that bridge fight.
Yeah, definitely. That's one thing we see a lot of in comp. We'll see one deck become really strong, and then a deck that's not even very popular become strong just in a way to counter it.
So, first minute and 10 away, and lead currently for Betfas in the bottom left-hand side of your screen, ever so slight as the wallbreakers split at the bridge. Now, interesting, when we talk about this matchup, we haven't seen like dozens upon dozens of mirror matches with this yet, although I'm expecting, as you said, we'll see more of them. What are your thoughts on the key to this mirror matchup?
So this mirror matchup in general is a lot of bridge fights. It's about making those positive elixir trades. The key for both players is utilizing the Prince. But in this matchup specifically, Betfas has gone with the Inferno Dragon, which seems like a way to counter this deck whilst also playing this deck. As Eric won't have a counter to it, he'll only have arrows as his spell, so that Inferno Dragon will get lots of value. You see how it's brought lots of elixir out of him there, and that Mega Knight of Eric's will get shredded if he ever places it in front of it on a big push.
I mean, why do you think we're seeing the variants that are being chosen here, right? And Betfas gets a nice connection there. Why is Eric going with the Archers and Bird as opposed to the E-Wiz Inferno Dragon version that Betfas is running?
I think Eric's version of the deck is the most solid in a general sense, but what Betfas has done here is he knows how. Well, Eric's main deck actually is this Mega Knight deck on ladder. He runs it a lot. I've played it recently in ladder, just playing this deck, and he's very strong with it. So Betfas will know this and think, I can play you in a mirror matchup. change one card, and I'll have a great advantage because of this.
Well, so far, advantage for Eric as we go into sudden death overtime. 1484 on the top right-hand side, 1321 on the top left-hand side, so a couple hundred HP, or at least almost 100, maybe. Let's back it up. 50 HP is the lead right now in favor of Eric, but the dual lane pressure could be a problem as we have seen this deck put real issues into both lanes. Now, we talk about that dual lane pressure here. SB, when dealing with the way that this can put pressure on both sides, would you rather be in the EWIZ camp or in the Archers camp?
I definitely think in the EWIZ camp overall, because like Betfas has got the arrows for the Archers as well, whereas the EWIZ, the Inferno Dragon are things that Eric doesn't have a direct counter for. So these little changes will change the matchup based on this, and I think it's slowly turning in Betfas' favour, but what you've got to be careful is not to overcommit. Not to get over aggressive and lose your lead, but a big wall breaker connection there. Looks like this game is quite secured in the bag for Betfas.
80 seconds left, and Eric can do some desperation moves like this one. Mega Knight bait right there, and happy to take that exchange is Betfas, and now the dual lane pressure. Bandit to the middle. Prince does stay there to pick up the Bandit, but the Mega Knight doing its work. Miner down, Mega Knight high to pick up. The leap from the errant Mega Knight, but that 225 now down to about 100. 51 HP. Arrows will do it. Betfas going to take the win here with a phenomenal deck pick to take game number 1, and Tribe Gaming continues to be really, really solid in this competition, SB.
Yeah, definitely, I agree. I think that the winner of that match was that slight analytical play of choosing, a few cards different in a strong deck already that gives you the advantage over your opponent, in which is likely to play this deck themselves.
Now, let's go take a look for a quick moment, because I know we brought you on very quickly as we wait for our second player from Strangers to jump in at today's lineup of matches. Tribe Gaming, right now, our opening match here against Strangers. SK Gaming will take on PUIGINS in a match of 4-0 versus 0-4. Will we see Mohamed Light and Morten get matched up today? Queso versus Hype Boys, and then Chivas versus SK CALALAS. Let's go ahead and jump in to game number 2. Reminder of the format here, folks. The format for this is King of the Hill set number 1, King of the Hill set 2, and if necessary, set number 3 is an in-game 1v1 dual mode battle. So starting off King of the Hill, remember, each team puts forward 3 players, and the other team tries to eliminate all 3 players from the other team. If you win, you stay on. If you lose, you're out.
And I think we're seeing a bit of mind games from Betfas here. I really like the choice to stay with the exact same deck. It's a thing that's, I think, not very utilised as much in competition anymore, but it can have a definite advantage because it gives you the opponent the idea that you're not going to repeat the deck you've just played.
And Skeleton King, we'll see if this is one of the decks that's designed that counters this very well, though. And it's E-Giant, so not the top of the pops when it comes to countering this Mega Knight pressure deck.
Although not the top of the pops, I think definitely will be a good matchup for him overall, but Betfas with some really good early pressure, seeing that he didn't have the elixir or the correct response to deal with that push on the right-hand side.
As we pass the midway point of regulation, you can see the huge connection, taking a very, very big lead, 1,300 HP and change for Betfas, who is not just the Expo one trick anymore, SB.
No, he's definitely branching out into comp. He realized he can't just play Expo, or even he kind of changed into Hog, but it was still the kind of same deck. It still had the same counters. He's playing heavier decks now, giving himself more of a chance in comp in the future. But going into this match further, I think Adrian Piedra is just going to have to control as much as he can. An unlucky placement with that NATO there, not getting the activation and taking one hit isn't going to do him any favours. But even still, he's only got arrows, he's only got miner, so he can technically lane block for the rest of the game and still have a chance at winning.
And I do see that the overlay isn't updated, folks. That's not coming from me, that's coming from the production booth, but I've let them know. Hopefully they'll get that fixed up here very soon. Either way, we are now into double elixir time, and so far, Betfas playing a very, very clean game here. You know, no building often spells trouble for someone defending against E-Giant, but it does seem that maybe with the Prince, Ewiz, Inferno Dragon combination that Betfas is able to shut down fairly nicely.
Yeah, he's got a lot of DPS troops. It's just whether one push he gets overwhelmed in. Normally the Prince is a very good counter to the E-Giant when you've got nothing else for it, but with this Skelly King, the Tombstone, there's going to be so many skeletons to distract this that it could be difficult for him to deal with. Here we see Adrian Pierre just starting to build a push up. He's definitely going to get some great damage here, and this Phoenix will clean up all of the defenses as well, so he's got no counter-attack risk.
Inferno Dragon doing its job. Arrows clean up, but damage in 1947 to 902. Miner goes to the back. Phoenix there. Tombstone should pick up, and does against those wall breakers. Adding to his lead right now is Betfas. 90 seconds left. At this point, SB, Betfas, you talk about that ability of being overwhelmed. Is it more in Betfas's favor to be trying to push right now and get this tower down and finish the game? Or does he, and is sitting back and playing defense the right move or the wrong move?
Normally I would say with this Mega Knight deck to go opposite lane, but because of the Tombstone and the Skeleton King, it changes that quite a lot. I think what Betfas is doing now is the right thing to be doing. Just going for minor chip, but cycling in the same lane, hoping to get 1 or 2 minor hits every attack, and then just use those arrows to finish off the tower like he has now.
Well, he did it perfectly. Betfas now 2 up, 2 down, and a chance at a King of the Hill sweep potentially here. And SB, Betfas, you know, we're CRL now at Clash Royale Esports in the building here, by the way. Shout out to, I see Cashman in the chat as well. Shout out to everybody there who's joining for what's going to be a really, really fun day. Folks, I see people always asking, and I'm going to plug here for a second. People in the chat are always asking, hey, what's a good deck for this? What's a good deck for this level? Go to Cashman. Cashman is your guy for that information. Really phenomenal content creator, great YouTube channel, huge on TikTok. So yeah, that's my big call. Go to Cashman for all your. Don't ask me for what deck to use in Arena Blank. He has a video for whoever you are. He has a video for it. So go ahead and check him out. I'm a big fan of his overall, and of course happy to have Clash Royale Esports in the chat as well. This is a really fun year for Clash Royale Esports, and let's go ahead. Speaking of esports, jump right back in to game number 3, and Betfas versus EGW, currently the most unpredictable man in Clash Royale competitive.
Yeah, and I think he's having a lot of success with being unpredictable. I saw a graphic earlier that he was 11-5 at the minute, which was one of the best win rates in this tournament so far. And I'm still not sure what he's playing this game. If I had to bet, I think it would be Graveyard coming from EGW, and it looks like a mortar control bait / deck from Betfas.
And just a little touch there on the bottom left-hand side. EGW has been really successful with kind of strange off or at least like second level meta decks. It seems like when he has gone with decks that are firmly like top tier meta decks, that's when he's made more mistakes. And I'm curious if you have any thoughts on that, as this monk just goes ahead and ruins all the things in front of it. And well, what a nice kite. And then cleanup doesn't quite get the retarget for Betfas. Curious what you think about that, right? Some players who are really good when being a little bit less predictable, but who maybe have some more challenges when they go with the really popular meta decks.
Yeah, my opinion on this, I don't really think they've got less micro skills, less macro skills. I think it's just they like that unpredictability about them, and that they thrive off not playing a deck that has a set way to play it. You know, they can play unique ways, and that way they become less predictable. And it's more just a mindset of them, how they are the player and their personality that really makes them. I think that's what it comes down to.
So as we go into sudden death overtime, the lead once more for Betfas. We have not had tons of King of the Hill sweeps, but we've had a decent number. Betfas would like to add himself to that short list. And Miner working on the archers, and that's one of the interesting things about this deck here from EGW is so far we have not seen a clean way to handle miners in the back other than when the monk crosses the bridge.
No, it seems like a lot of good cards for EGW, but I'm not sure how they're going to synergize. I'm seeing that he's only got one card left, so it indicates that it's a win condition. and he likely doesn't have another spell than Zap. So these flying machines and these archers are going to be hard to deal with him if he does, say, have a balloon in this last spot. And I think it's just going to come down to him being chipped out by these miners, like you say, because all of his responses to the miner are quite heavy, and he has to deal with other stuff too.
And the miner pulls the Mega Knight back. Yeah, very, very nice. Flying Machine gets on, and just trying to stop the bleeding right now is EGW. Nice zap to retarget, but damage done, 672 on the bottom left-hand side. It feels like the eulogy is written. We're just waiting for it to be printed.
Yeah, definitely, Rich. I think this deck by EGW is one of those decks that's great on paper. You know, it's got so many strong cards, but it just doesn't work when you put them all together.
And annoying for the Monk to see the Flying Machine and then the cannon and the layering here. We'll get halfway down. Miner will come in and do a little bit of work, but the Mortar plus Cannon Cart plus the Archers and Flying Machine. That's the other thing, too, about this SB is you look at all the pieces to counter a balloon. Not only do you have the kind of weird synergies for EGW, but you also have so many layers of ways to shut down balloons, and Betfas does it easily. 3 up, 3 down, and Tribe Gaming now is just 3 wins away from taking control of our lead at 5-0.
Yeah, definitely, Rich. I agree with what you said there about the counter to balloon. It was very, very hard for EGW to push you. I think the only way he had a chance there is maybe having like an arrows in this deck. I think playing balloon in this meta without arrows is very hard to do just because of how prevalent archers are and just the meta that we're facing. Generally speaking, air decks aren't very strong in this meta unless you've got like the perfect counters to their counters.
And that's one of the weird things, right, is balloon, right? There was a phase for a long time where Loon Cycle was really strong and very popular. Miner Muskaloon was a central meta deck for a long time. And it feels like somehow, no matter, even with the change in the drop speed from the balloon, it feels like balloon has just been almost left in the past of Clash Royale.
Yeah, I mean, with Lava, we're normally seeing Lava Miners. With the Miner decks, we're not seeing it paired with Balloon anymore. It's Ball Breakers. I think it's just because of how strong Phoenix is, how strong E-Giant is. All these cards are built up to counter it at this point. And even Archers, even if you have arrows, the DPS they do, as quickly as they do it, once you've played the arrows on those Archers, your Balloon's nearly dead anyway. So it's not in the strongest way it can be right now. It's still playable from players who are very good at it, but if you're talking about an optimal card in this current meta, Balloon's not one of them, I don't think.
So speaking about the match we have in front of us here, Wallace, Sandbox, Betfas, and XAlee, the players for Tribe Gaming. So far, we've only seen one of those 4 players come up. From your experience, and you've played lots of King of the Hill in your time playing in CRL Asia in the past, do you feel like when someone sweeps on King of the Hill, do you like the idea of sending them back on because they have the hot hand, or sitting them because they just burned a bunch of decks and put someone else out who has a fresh look?
See, for me, I think if I ever swept in King of the Hill and I had the chance to play again, I think I just want the break at this point. When you're playing competition matches, it uses a lot more energy than the others, and even though the adrenaline's going through you, I just like the chance to sit down. But I think for some players, they're just so routined in it, they just say, oh, put me again, I'm on fire. So I think it really depends on the person.
Could we go player to player? And speaking of player to player, our lineup for this set, Tribe Gaming will be bringing out Sandbox, Wallace, and Betfas. Strangers with Adrian Piedra, Cerdillo, and EGW. So first matchup will be Sandbox versus Adrian Piedra. And very curious to see how these two match up together, because Sandbox, currently still an absolute world-class player. I think it's been difficult for him playing, and you're kind of in the same boat, right? It's late for you. You're over in Australia. It's difficult for him playing at night, whereas Adrian Piedra, certainly well-rested. I know that gamers keep really weird hours, and you're used to playing at all different times. But, you know, for you, would you rather be playing an hour after you woke up or an hour before you want to fall asleep?
Well, I think I've done both. I mean, there's been times where I've had to set my alarm for like 3 a.m. just to wake up to play some of these leagues. But definitely, I think the perfect time to be playing would be like where the European guys are. So like maybe like 8 o'clock at night, you finish the day, you don't have to worry about going to sleep straight away, but then you're also relaxed. You're not got to think about what the rest of the day has to offer.
And Sucketh Ram saying, if he is from Australia, why isn't his video upside down? Stop capping, Rich. And that's a fair point. That's a fair
We've
point.
actually inverted it. It is upside down, but we've got to apply a software to it just to turn it back around. So that's why you're not seeing it upside down.
And this is what a wonderful situation for Adrian Piedra, who is playing what was 2-3 weeks ago the #1 deck in the game and has fallen a bit out of favor, but a great pick for him right now against this E-Giant deck, minus maybe switching the Musketeer out for the Archers.
Yeah, definitely. I think a good matchup on paper here for Adrian, but this Golden Knight and Double Elixir will have a lot of ability usage on all of these squishy units that Adrian Piedra has, so that is a Sandbox saving grace at the minute.
And I see some people in the Twitch chat asking when is Morten going to play. Morten will be in our second matchup of the day. We're in our match #1. For everybody, whether you're watching on YouTube or on Twitch, the entire list of rosters and the match order for today is listed in the description on YouTube. So you can go ahead and find all that information there.
And we're seeing Inferno Dragon here from Sandbox, which is unusual given how strong Phoenix is, but I think it's actually going to benefit in this matchup. Usually when Phoenix comes down behind this E-Giant, Mortar finds it a lot easier to deal with, but when you place it behind the E-Giant, the Inferno Dragon, all of the squishy troops get melted, and you don't have a reset once that Ice Spirit is out of hand. However, a great defense here from Adrian Piedra, and he's just going to need more of this, keep going forward, get some minor chip, get some poison. Even if he wins the game just on damage and doesn't have to take a tower, that's ideal for him.
And down to about 2,000 HP, or 2,100 HP plus 97. I can read numbers on screens. Been doing it for many years. And this is a pretty big pressure play on the right-hand side as the Golden Knight does get the mortar down. This should be cleaned up nicely, though. What does Sandbox have to do to win this matchup? Is it really just about getting one big Golden Knight connection to clean everything up?
Yeah, as much as it isn't working right now, I think just keep rinsing and repeating, because Adrian Piedra does have to pull out flawless defenses. Even that lightning cycle is going to be quite good for him, because this minor damage won't be too much in the grand scheme of things. But like you said, Rich, definitely a Golden Knight connection with a Nado usually will happen in the last minute of the game at triple elixir when he's got more elixir to burn, and that could be the winning point for him, because Adrian Piedra doesn't actually have too much damage as a lead right now on his tower.
And trying to get this mortar out of the way if possible. Goblins to surround and finish off the DPS on that Electro Giant. Inferno Dragon will require a response, but not a big one here, and the Archers are what does it. This does start to lend the Elixir lead towards Sandbox, and he does take the King Tower activation. So at what point, and now that we're getting 15 seconds away from triple Elixir SB, at what point does Sandbox decide to just tank an entire miner on that Princess Tower to get the overwhelm the opposite direction? Or is there even a point where he makes that decision?
I think there's no point unless it's in the last 15-20 seconds and you're definitely losing. People really underestimate how much a miner does, and that miner, looking at his tower now, would take it down to 1200, which could be a turning point in the game. But if you've got to do it, it's normally at the last point. Great Golden Knight redirection there from Adrian Piedra, saving those archers, could really help him with this defense. But this Inferno Dragon and this Overwhelm could slightly lose the game for him right now. It depends how he defended.
Lightning
but it looks to be all good.
30 seconds left. Miner being worked on by the King Tower, 15-17 to 22-90. Sandbox needs significant damage here to not drop this game to Adrian Piedra. And now he decides to ignore the Miner with the King Tower in tow. Here is where he goes, and just as SB said, the desperation moment. Great Mighty Miner high, just as the NATO pulled the Archers out of chain range. Lightning will not do it, and Adrian Piedra going to go ahead and put Strangers on the board here in set number 2.
Yeah, definitely, and that was a great win for Adrian Piedra. Although that matchup, yes, on paper it's for him, it's a deck that has to be played perfectly to get the win, so he should be very happy with that one.
Definitely happy indeed, and reminder, folks, this is set number 2, King of the Hill. Tribe Gaming already leading with winning set number 1 on the Betfas sweep, and now that we have one player down, Adrian Piedra will stay on the board. Next up for Tribe Gaming will be Wallace. SB, Wallace has gone through a really interesting kind of journey as a competitive Clash Royale player, right? Kind of was, for a long time, gate-kept, if you will, stuck in the semi-pro scene for a while, and then finally got his opportunity to show off in CRL. And, of course, we talked about it many times here on the channel. Had that wonderful performance at World Finals, single-handedly taking down Nova Esports and putting his team through to the next round. Definitely someone that I've called for a long time underrated. Last year had an unfortunate miss of World Finals. Where do you see Wallace in the standings and the rankings of players with World Finals potential here in 2023?
So normally with players, I would see them as, great skill, great potential. They could be top 16, they could not be. But with Wallace, he's always like a stable top 16 for me. I think he's such a solid player all around. And if it wasn't for, he got very unlucky in last year, like you said, to get into World Finals, I think he would just be a routine World Finals player. So if he can emulate it this year, what he's been doing for the past few, he definitely will make it to World Finals, I think.
Well, that's his hope. Currently ranked 14th overall in standings, or at least tied for 14 in standings. Let's go ahead and jump into his matchup against Adrian Piedra, the Aztec Eagle, who, I don't know if we're going to see Adrian make a push for CRL this year. I don't know how seriously he's taking CRL attempts at this stage in his career, but love seeing him play really clean Clash Royale today.
It's funny you mentioned that, Rich. He's actually been practicing a lot, so I think ideally he's going to give it another shot. He practices a lot with Surge and those kind of groups of friends, so I think that's a reason why we're seeing this success right now.
Currently 128th in our CRL 2023 standings with 30 points. And remember, folks, for everyone watching at home, this is the final push weekend, so when you're not watching Queso Cup teams, make sure that you're trying to, if you want to play in CRL, get that Path of Legends push to the top 1,000, and once you get into the Swiss bracket stage, you can start earning those points to try to make yourself viable for CRL 2023 World Finals.
And some good early damage here for Adrian. Typically with this drill deck, you're only getting damage in double because it's quite heavy. You're playing more control-based, but I think this is going to be a very good matchup for him. So he's able to go for that early drill just because of Wallace's lack of counters. Adrian's going to have the nado, he's going to have 2 air counters, he's going to have a building 2, whereas Wallace really doesn't have any counter for the drill. He's not even got a barb barrel, a log, no Valkyrie, he's got the knight, he's got all the worst possible counters he could want for the interchangeables, as you could say, in this deck.
That's a great point, right? The interchangeables, and it's so interesting how just a shift of 1 or 2 cards, you think of the same archetype, and you go, oh, this archetype beats this archetype. But just a couple of shifts here, and suddenly the matchup changes dramatically. Magic Archer gets some nice lineup there, and that's going to be a number of shots and force a lot of extra expenditure out from Wallace that he didn't want to have to use right there.
Yeah, Rich, a negative trade and losing damage is not something you want to see as a player. Even having to use that building on that Golden Knight, it's just lots of things that are unoptimal. And Adrian Piedra acknowledging this and going as aggressive as he can at this point. I'm not sure about the drill in the back. That gives Wallace a slight way to counter it, and he's going with a balloon in here. Be interesting to see how he defends this. He's got no miner, so he's not scared about a miner sniping an air defense. But this is going to get quite a bit of damage unless he does the nado, and he gets that nado off perfectly.
Solid King Tower activation, and the other thing about Adrian throwing the drill to the back, and I don't know how many players know this because it's so many players don't throw drill to the back a lot, but you can activate King Tower against a drill to the back of a Princess Tower using skeletons. So that is it's not the hardest move to pull off either. Very curious if these two players both know and are concerned about it.
See, I didn't even know about that, Rich. The more you know, hey? Pro tips for Rich Slayton. I'll definitely have to give that a go in the future.
I have a short on this channel breaking down that tech.
Oh, when the miss nado.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. That's a ton of damage. Balloon all over it, and that's going to put this into sudden doubt, where Adrian Piedra seemed to have this one pretty well sewn up. Now he's in a whole lot of trouble. Snowball does it, and that's all it takes, folks. Wallace taking game number 2.
Yeah, a very close game there, Rich, but I think that wasn't Wallace's win. That was Adrian's loss, definitely. A naked balloon on the tower shouldn't be getting a hit against Sneewers in a nado, but Wallace is not going to be worried about that too much at this point. I think he's just going to be happy with the win.
Let's go ahead and take a look at how that went down. Miner to the outside, Ewiz comes to the middle, and the Ewiz getting blocked too late. So when Adrian goes for the nado, just a little bit off, and that's all it takes. You miss a NATO on a balloon. I mean, you miss a NATO in general, it's usually a huge problem. You miss a NATO on a balloon, well, you might as well kiss that tower good night and put it to bed, because it ain't waking up anytime soon. GG, well played. Wallace capitalizes on the mistake there, as we are now all tied up between these two, and I do appreciate the Roy Kent level honesty there. Not Wallace's win, but Adrian Pedro's loss in that one. You know, so I had a question that I'll ask you when we get to it later, but I guess the question I will go to now, since it just happened, is Tornado, where do you rank on the most devastating cards to misplay? Tornado is one of the most common ones that we see, but is it the most devastating? What card? I mean, look, obviously if you miss a rocket, right, that might be an absolute problem, but what cards do you look at and you go like, wow, misplaying that is just, might as well be a death sentence?
I think a lot of things that come to mind are like the micro ones. You know the way you would activate King Tower with an Ice Spirit on a Mega Knight, pulling it close to the tower. If you miss that by 1 second, that Mega Knight's on your tower and possibly losing the game. Fisherman 2 is another one. If you're placing a Fisherman in the back and then you see a giant skeleton at the bridge, instantly your game's over. So you've got to be very wary of that. Those are just the few that come to mind so far, I think. Possibly a Graveyard. If you place a Graveyard 1 tile 2 back and that activates King Tower, that's your game over completely.
And next up is going to be Cerdillo up against Wallace. That'll be starting here in just a couple of moments. And for those of you who want to know how to do it, I'm linking the short in the chat right now. Let's go ahead and jump into our match. But I'm linking the short right in the chat so that you can learn how to activate King Tower with skeletons against Goblin Drill. It's a pretty cool technique, and I learned it from Ian77, actually, the hog expert. He told me about that back in the day when we were talking some Hog Rider tips.
Going into the match here, we have looking like a minor deck, could be a hog deck from Wallace. We've not seen any cards played from Cerdillo so far, so we've got not much to deal with, other than the fact that he's probably got a control deck, looking at how slow he's playing it. Giant Skeleton makes me think he's got Drill or possibly Graveyard. Possibly a Loon too, but most likely a Drill or a Graveyard.
And Archer Queen, I haven't looked at usage stats lately, but she has definitely fallen down the ladder as far as overall usage amongst our collection of champions. Mortar pressure opposite lane, and easy control here with the Golden Knight.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you say there, Rich. I think definitely gone are the days where you see an Archer Queen and start to panic about having to spend your whole deck's worth of elixir to defend it. It just doesn't seem as strong anymore going into it. And now it looks like we've got definitely a minor mortar versus a drill control deck here from Cerdillo. This is going to be quite hard for Wallace, typically speaking. Although Valkyrie, Goblins, Log, it looks like you counter. Generally speaking, you start to overwhelm and double with the drill. With that Golden Knight, with that Magic Archer, all these things can get a lot of damage on tower.
That's so interesting, right? Yeah, because I was thinking, like, hey, Valkyrie, Log, Goblins, Ice Spirit, like, you have so many tools to contend, but I guess as you're talking about, as the hard part is as troops begin to build up on Cerdillo's side of the board and create chaos, if you will, that gets much harder for Wallace to control all these things.
Yeah, and an unlucky minor there, but with good Goblins to pressure to make up for that King Tower activation there. Mistake by Wallace has definitely brought him back into the game, but at this point it's going to be a lot of control-based play from Cerdillo. Getting drills down when he's got a big push is generally best. With that Golden Knight, usually wants to go same lane as the mortar, but because of damage on the opposite side right now, he's in a bit of a sticky situation, but he's got to deal with what he's got.
Poison on the right-hand side will get okay value between the drill and the Magic Archer, but still has to do some control work high for Wallace. What is he going to do about this Golden Knight? A cheeky NATO from Cerdillo to get the little extra damage. Golden Knight controlled high by Wallace to try to put a bandage on that one, but as you mentioned, just the overwhelm. If it ain't one thing, it's the other. You try to stop the drill, there's the Golden Knight. You stop the Golden Knight, there's the Magic Archer.
Yeah, and that's what I was mentioning, Rich, about these counters. You've got them, but ooh, and the mortar's on tower. He's gonna have to get an E-Wiz off, but Wallace is gonna do his best to protect it, I think.
And interesting, Wallace opting to go get damage on tower rather than protect the mortar.
Yeah, he's He's okay to take this giant skeleton damage on the other side here just so we can defend this, but I think this is going to take his tower if he doesn't defend it.
Oh, that's very, very low, and yeah, that's a huge problem. Tower, bye-bye, and it's going to be 2-1 over to Strangers on the power of Cerdillo's play there. I don't know why I said
solid
it's
play all around. Yeah, I keep on looking at thinking, because he's got a different name in game as well, so it's confusing me. I'm wondering who to pronounce. But yeah, some solid gameplay overall. He knows the matchup, so all he has to do is just play routine. Wallace is the one who's got to outplay. Leave it in his hands to outplay. As long as you play solid, you've got the win there.
Well, it's funny, like with some of these teams, I think I was talking about this yesterday. It was somebody on Hype Boys. It might have been Line, but some of these players like have a different name every season. It seems there's some consistency because I think Line is Quinoa now, but I think he had some other name for a minute there as well. So, right? Didn't he go through something else for a while?
Yeah, I don't know, because I've got him on my friends list, and I've been playing him on ladder, but I played this Quinoa, and I was like, oh, who's this guy? He's quite good, he's not in a clan, he just beat me. And then I checked my friends list, and he's on my friends list. I think, who's that guy? So I have to Royal API him, go back in his history, just to find out that it's Line. But yeah, always changing the names every single month, these players.
Here we go. Can Betfas find magic once more? Opens up with Drill to the left-hand lane. Currently 3-0 on the day. Can he make it 4?
This is going to be a drill cycle or the drill that Cerdillo just played, and it looks like Cerdillo's repeating too, so another bit of the mind games here.
And lots of tankage, so happy to drill.
Yep, so sorry, Rich. So in this matchup, typically speaking, if Cerdillo can get a counter activation against one of the drill or even the mighty miner, it's quite hard to pull off, but it can be the difference in this game.
Goblins has almost completely supplanted Skeletons, although Skelly's making a slight comeback because of the prevalence of Golden Knight NATO Dash Mania. And it's, there's some work in progress balance changes announced recently, and we'll be getting some final balance changes out there pretty soon. What would you do to the for the Goblins versus Skeletons relationship to balance that out a bit more?
Yeah, I think the problem with the Goblins is just the DPS right now is too much. When you got a mine on the tower, although mine is strong and we don't want miner to be too strong and Goblins are a reason of countering it, if a miner poison comes on the tower, the Goblins actually kill the miner before the poison can even kill the Goblins. So I think that's a bit of a problem. I think lower the DPS a little bit, keep the 4 Goblins, but just make them not hit as much, and perhaps do a buff to then Goblin Barrel and Drill in another way other than DPS, just to counter that DPS nerf.
Yeah, Bait is kind of dead at the moment. What's the how do you buff? Like this is again, now we're getting into the difficulty of being a game dev, right? You nerf Goblins, you take their DPS down. Goblin Barrel's already, Bait's already kind of in trouble right now. What do you then do to Goblin Barrel to make Goblin Barrel viable? Add a 4th Goblin?
I agree there. Yeah, it's hard to, but then you add a 4th Goblin, it becomes a 4 elixir card, but it's 3 elixirs, so it's very fine margins that can make the game very differently. And even between players, you've got different level of players will find different cards stronger just because of their biases, and if you're not playing the card optimally, it might change how it's played, how it feels. So it's so many different things that you've got to contend with that you sometimes feel for them.
260 or 2679 on the bottom right hand side. Betfas has not taken much in the way of damage. And Fireball really has only had one necessary target in that Magic Archer as he kind of controls everything here in the middle. We head into Sudden Death overtime with the lead for Betfas, but are we seeing a similar story just in a different book here with the ability of Cerdillo to overwhelm as we get the triple?
Yeah, these Golden Knight NATOs are going to become a lot more prevalent, definitely, with the elixir that you've got to spare now. I think overall it's going to be how well can Betfas continually defend versus how much can he get, because I don't think he's going to be able to get in too much more damage, and unless he plays perfectly, he's just going to be taking damage from now on.
Musketeer absolutely handled. And we are only 5 HP separate on the right-hand lane, although that Magic Archer does some good work on the left-hand side as well. Golden Knight Gonna get in and should get the dash. Nice connection there. Magic Archer behind everything. And the log does not disrupt its geometry. So the lead opens up even more for Cerdillo, who's looking more and more like he's gonna send us to the third and final set.
Yeah, definitely late. Betfas not in a good spot here. He's doing his best now with this pressure. This pressure can be easily dealt with, but he's just hoping for a mistake which can get him the damage. He knows that if it's played perfectly by Cerdillo, he's got the loss. So he definitely just needs to hope for a mistake, use cards that can bring mistakes, like the Mighty Miner at the bridge. Even do that Musketeer at the bridge with a Goblin drill behind. If it's not perfect defense, he could get damage, and that can be the difference to him coming back in this game.
Now big load up in the right-hand side after dealing with that one. Mighty Miner, drill goes left, Ice Spirit behind. Will the Mighty Miner switch lanes? Or will it's going to stay here for a moment and work on that Giant Skeleton? Lots of damage in on the right-hand side as a ton of Goblins escape, and the Golden Knight does not clean up very well. So suddenly, we are back in a slightly tighter situation, and that Cannon Cart breaks down out of range. No Golden Knight on the right-hand side to help. We are in the final 10 seconds, but look at the damage being dealt. 562, Magic Archer gets the lineup, and that will be it. King of the Hill sweeps on both sides here. Cerdillo coming out hot, sending us to set number 3.
Yeah, King of the Hill sweeps on both sides here, and both King of the Hill sweepers repeating decks. So maybe we could see that going forward in other matches, you know, the ability to psych out your opponent that way. Be interesting to see who plays the last match from both of these teams now. I think I'd have to say Betfas after his first sweep from Tribe, and possibly EGW just for the surprise factor in the duels, not being so predictable with all these standard duel decks that we're seeing now in competition.
And taking a look at those final few seconds, Betfas made it close, but you see here, close just doesn't hold it as the pressure to put damage on the left-hand side opened up more opportunity for damage on the right, and easy does it. Cerdillo goes ahead and takes the win there. So you're right, we're going into that third set, and I really like your call here, SB, the idea of, yeah, let's give the hot hand. Betfas is playing really well today. He seems like very dialed in, but he's also now played 4 games, burned through a lot of what, I mean, actually, maybe let me take that back. You think about burning through decks, and that's almost maybe outdated talking about old CRL teams. Do you view that as a similar consideration in this modern era of Clash Royale, or is that an outdated thought that's based on the old CRL teams format?
I think typically in CRL teams it's because, you know, you've got a week to prepare. Usually you're going to have 5 decks that you master, and that's in your deck slot. You've got them in your deck slots. You go hop up on stage. That's you not changing them. You've got a minute between each matches. But these top players now, they're all playing on ladder, playing different decks all the time. And then we go into the duels form as well, which switches things off, making it all of your games that you just played before in a King of the Hill are irrelevant because you've got to conform to now the new duel mode. So it changes your thinking anyway.
And Airser for pointing out my mistake that Adrian Piedra beat Sandbox in the second set. So let me make sure that Adrian does get his flowers there. It wasn't a sweep by Cerdillo. It was 1 for Adrian and then a couple for Cerdillo. So there you go. Nice. Thank you for the correction there. You know, it takes a CRL pro sometimes to catch the little things. And speaking of the little things here, perfect prediction by my co-caster SB. The third set will be Betfas versus EGW. So the hot hand goes back out, and then on the other side of things, the unpredictability is the move for Strangers. And I'm curious now, right? If you're EGW, you know, when you're in matchups SB against the top 5, right? You're in matchups against Mo, against Lucas, against Mugi. You often go for the crazier stuff. Just because you're going, hey, I'm not going to outplay them. Let me try to go for matchup and unpredictability and catching them with something. Do you think we see the same thing here from EGW against Betfas, or does he play a little bit more with a little more synergy than we saw him do earlier today?
I think this is perfect for EGW because, like you said, when you're against typically a better player, even though psychologically you don't want to think, oh, I'm going to play a worse deck because I've got to beat them by luck. Still, this is how EGW does it against better players and worse players. So why not just keep doing you, and you might have that chance of winning by luck. But if you don't have the chance of winning by luck, you're EGW, you do this anyway, so you can win anyway. So
we'll see. We're getting ready for this one. And taking a look at the chat here, I do see a lot of people very excited for this matchup. Let's see. I see people kind of weighing in. Someone saying, I love geography because of the Magic Archer. I would go with Geometry if I was going to pick something that Magic Archer's good at, but he might be phenomenal at maps as well. Let's go ahead and jump in to our final set of this opening match. Tribe Gaming looking to go 4-0. Strangers looking to potentially secure themselves a spot in the top 6.
A Ghost here from Betfas to start. Doesn't really give much away. It's a card that's always used in duel. It's too strong to leave out. And a Golden Knight coming down from EGW into the Flying Machine from Betfas. So looking like possibly like a Mega Knight Pigs deck from Betfas against a Pump deck from EGW, which you've got no clue of.
Yeah, well, Golden Knight, we did see a bunch of Pump Bow, but I can't imagine Golden Knight or Heal Spirit. So maybe it's 3M here from EGW?
Yeah, it could be a 3M E-Giant. So I've sort of with Goblin Giant sometimes too from Jusso. He sometimes play this on ladder. It's going to be hard, I think, though, whatever it is versus this Betfas deck. You'll most likely have a Fisherman, Zappies, a lot of counters to it. But this XAlee from EW is where he's got to bring it back in this single elixir against this heavy deck of Betfas, punishing this Pump. And he's lost his tower, so, you know, normally you tank damage to build up this push. This push is really where it matters for him.
Yeah, that's kind of a problem, to be having lost that left-hand tower, and now Royal Ghost will handle 6 of that 9 elixir pretty easily, plus the King Tower activation added in. But this is 3 Musketeers. We've seen some crazy 3M stuff, and this rage...
What a great rage there.
What in the world? And that was the big surprise play for EGW, but the Fisherman ends up pulling the Golden Knight off the tower. If that tower went down, we are into a very strange situation, a dangerous one. But now it does feel like this has gone back in Betfas' favor.
Yeah, definitely advantage Betfas here. EGW would definitely have wanted that tower down because in this situation, Betfas doesn't need to do one more Royal Hogs for the rest of the game. He just keeps stacking in the same lane and hopes that he gets that defense off, which is more than likely going to happen. It's going to take EGW with a big Golden Knight dash, a rage, a big push for him to get this win.
Mother Witch going to actually turn that mini P.E.K.K.A into a pig here.
And the lane block here from Betfas. This is exactly what he needs to do. Everything in the same lane. He's not scared of a big spell. He can do that Flying Machine behind it all, as long as the rage doesn't power things up too much. If that... Oh, that bomb comes in clutch. But he is spread a bit thin on the other tower here.
Yeah, gave a lot more to the Muskies on the left-hand lane than he would have hoped or expected. Golden Knight, no NATO to make this all connect, and no connection to the Princess Tower. Rage down, but pigs to block, and Betfas will win game number 1 in what was not short on excitement whatsoever. What a deck pick out of EGW.
Yeah, a game of fine margins there. A few different interactions, and that changes it all and makes EGW look like the hero. But definitely advantage Betfas going into game 2 now, knowing that he's controlled him, he's played against a deck that's typical EGW deck, and won the game.
And Simple say needed Tornado to make that work, maybe. Needed something, that's for sure.
And I think we see EGW go down with his classic Mega Knight deck here. It's a deck that's comfort for him as much as it is different, but because it's so meta right now, it's a great position for him to be in.
And you know, you gotta wonder if the deck 1 pick left him obviously tons of interesting options, although taking Golden Knight out for such a strange deck. Where's he going to put Tornado in if we do get past this one? And right now, looking like he has a very good chance after that massive Wall Breakers connection. Yeah,
this is what EGW does. He knows the perfect time to punish with this deck. This is his ladder deck. He's routine with it. He knows what to do. So those Wall Breakers are a key pointer to show that he knows what he's doing with this deck. And this is why he's playing it in an 0-1 situation. He's got his comfort, and he knows that he can beat any hard counter with this, just because of his experience of playing it on ladder.
90 seconds remaining, and the lead firmly in for EGW. Someone saying Betfas fell asleep, and also maybe the most important point of the day. Has anyone ever told you, SB, that you look like Lando Norris, the F1 driver?
No, I've heard it a lot, but I think maybe I do. I think it might be the curly hair. But I'll have to, I'm going to keep that one. Just, I feel that's a good compliment.
And plenty of elixir to pick up this mortar. It's the bandit that does that job as the miner goes to work on that left-hand tower. Double elixir comes in, and the lead for Betfas, or the lead for EGW, seemingly insurmountable here.
But a big push here from Betfas on that left side. This is where he can come into it. He can take damage on that right side, knowing that he's going to only come down to a one-tower game anyway. With perfect defense on both of these towers now, he can slowly chip away with one hog hit at a time, as long as he keeps up this perfect defense.
So here's the interesting question, right? The of all the cards in this deck, it feels like Mega Knight is the best direct way, from a casual perspective, to stop the Hog Rider. But I don't see players using the Mega Knight in that exchange. They're doing this. They're doing like some sort of Prince plus others to DPS the Hog Rider down methodology. Can you give me a little, give us all a little context there?
Yeah, so Prince is going to get one hit from Hog. Mega Knight's going to get one hit from Hog. Archer's one hit from Hog. But it's saving elixir. And if you're doing that Mega Knight, you've not got a big push behind it. So that Mighty Mine is going to get a lot of value on that Mega Knight. So it's about one hit from a Hog no matter what, less elixir, and you've got a counter attack.
Do we see some dual lane pressure here from EGW?
And this is what I was saying, Rich, about the perfect defense. These are the points that win Betfas the game. If he can get this perfect defense off, he's getting the hog hits slowly but surely. But those two wall breakers get that connection.
Massive connection here, and elixir lead for EGW as well. Decides to prince up into the lane that Hog Rider wants. And gonna slow Betfas down a bit. EGW right back to miner, goes to the back of the tower, gets a big connection there, and that's gonna be it. EGW ties things up after being in a big hole for a moment, got himself a major lead, and maybe that lead was just a sliver enough to hold off against the Hog Onslaught as we go into our third and final game. Does EGW go meta, or does he go wild?
Well, EGW's got a lot of options right now because he's played that first deck, which really doesn't use any prevalent cards apart from the Golden Knight. He's got the options, whereas Betfas was looking a lot obvious, like he was going to play Miner with a Poison or a Fireball. So EGW, if he is smart, should be having a good matchup here. But it does look like the pig's going into the bomb tower, so it's going to be advantage Betfas so far. But with this EGW deck, it could have any cards that could trip Betfas off at any point.
Ice Spirit Skeletons, very fast variation of this deck, and Betfas will be able to put a lot of pressure on late.
Yeah, we saw a lot of this deck from Betfas in the first week here, but I think it kind of died a little bit over this past week, just between the time I was casting last. It seemed like Mega Knight came up a lot, but obviously from Betfas here, still playing it, it's still prevalent. And also the fact that it's less popular now would make you think it's going to be less counters, so it might just be a good time to play it.
Well, I think also you have to kind of separate the duels meta from the unrestricted gameplay meta, right?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there.
You're playing in duels, you know Mega Knight's out, so hey, why not pull out this deck now that it's in better shape?
And not using a small spell as well is very attractive for duels. You normally find that with Log being the best card, Barb Barrel probably the second best small spell. Arrows is always going to be by itself in a deck. Apart from that, you don't really want to play Zap or Snowball, so having just Tornado and no small spell really helps you in choosing your decks and giving you options for the other decks as well.
Double Elixir about to start. Betfas so far, so good. Going to get that right-hand tower down under 2,000 HP, and EGW setting up his push. What is it that EGW has to do here? Because I don't believe he's playing... Oh, he's playing Mirror, and that's very EGW. I don't believe this deck runs any sort of champion. Obviously, Golden Knight already there. Trying to get pigs past this bomb tower, certainly not easy. What wins him the game?
But yeah, he's going to want to be, if Betfas keeps pre-placing this bomb tower, he's going to be like he's doing, putting those giant skeletons into the lane and not royal hogs in. Because once that bomb tower has died, those pigs get a lot more damage than when the bomb tower's down. So, see how he's doing this bomb tower. Nice prediction on the Phoenix, that'll give him a slight advantage. Once this bomb tower goes down, even if they're at the same elixir, he should be doing a royal hogs at the bridge, because that's his only way of getting damage.
And here we go.
And here we go.
Piggy's behind the ghost. Ice Spirit slows things down. Bomb Tower not going to be there. Arrows get a ton of work done as well. So despite the Bomb Tower, despite the King Tower activation, EGW takes a nice lead, 1107 to going to be around 1700 HP here, plus poison. So a few hundred as we go into double. How far does EGW have to be ahead as we go into triple to not just get minor poison ruined?
I think it's going to be hard for him to win this game just because of the Golden Knight Nados, and Betfas won't make that same mistake of pre-placing a bomb tower if he can't defend it. He's not going to do that Phoenix anymore into a flying machine because he's the Zappy's going to come down and see. He just goes with the poison there, safe play, and going into it. But a great mirror there. If he can protect this flying machine, that's going to get a lot of value on the board.
Flying machine is protected by the first giant skeleton, second giant skeleton down. And the flying machine does not connect, but being tanked for by this big giant skeleton as well. Arrows in trying to make room, and take a look at this. Pigs on tower, giant skeleton in, and that should be enough to get it done. Flying machine gets that down to 119. Mirror arrows. I don't even know if you need the mirror here. Arrows, 119. I actually don't know what arrows do at, yeah, we'll need the mirror then. I don't know what arrows do at 11. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, I don't even know what they do at max. I normally just hold down on them and hope it's got the right value.
Yeah.
I never know my damage.
Well, there we go. EGW, on some fancy play, gives Tribe Gaming their first loss in this competition, and the unpredictability comes through huge for this squad.
Yeah, I think the difference in that matchup, Rich, was that mirror. It came down so crucial. I think looking at it on paper, if you don't have that mirror, you just get minor poisoned out with a perfect bomb tower on defense every time. EGW, Betfas used the poison on that flying machine, the first one. The mirror comes down and he gets all the value he needs to get Royal Hogs through onto the tower. If it wasn't for that flying machine, that's just a normal routine defense for Betfas.
And here we go, looking at that first big double giant skeleton push. And I believe this is going to be, at the back end of this clip, the really, really nice prediction play. Yeah, so you're going to see the flying machine come down, some action on the right-hand side, and then the Zappies will come down, boom, to predict that Phoenix and just kind of disrupt everything that Betfas wants to do defensively here. Betfas now has to rethink how he's going to be sequencing his defenses. Then we go on to the final moments of gameplay, and bomb tower high, but this flying machine, you talked about it, the flying machine being protected, and a great job. That level 12 flying machine just stays on the board forever. Betfas trying to find some way to spend. It gets the last shot, and at this point now, it's just rote. Get it done, and now we're going to know, of course, that how did you not know this one before? That those arrows will do, what is that, 111 damage that we just read from there? 111. And of course, I knew that the whole way through. GG, well played.
Just testing you, Rich. Just getting those math skills in place for coming games. Yeah, definitely. I think the mirror there was so key for EGW, getting him that win. Otherwise, definitely, I think it would have been a routine win for Betfas and 5-0 for Tribe. But turning it around for Strangers here, pushing them up the leaderboard, great things coming from EGW.
And taking a look at our leaderboard, you can see the Tribe Gaming inability to take over that top spot from PUIGINS. So no matter what happens today, CAL PUIGINS, SK CALALAS is one of their two teams, currently their top team, will maintain their position top of the table. And with a win over SK Gaming, if they can make that happen, they will really secure that top spot for a while. Strangers, with that third win, at this point, SK or Hype would have to have a really phenomenal run in order to take over and knock them out. So I don't know mathematically if that secures them that top spot. You have to look at some other things, but it certainly does make it a whole lot more viable. And you can see right here, by the way, folks, 99,432 if you're watching right now and you like competitive Clash Royale, you like Clash Royale esports, subscribe to this channel. We are back tomorrow and on Sunday to hit the end of this competition, of this league phase. And then, of course, we're back again end of April with the grand finals for this event. So if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you're back for more Clash Royale esports stuff that's happening here all the time throughout the year. And it's going to be, of course, a really fun year for Clash Royale esports in 2023, including this event here, SB, because as we talked about, this is just split 1 of the Queso Cup. We're back again in the summertime. And, of course, we love to have you back for as much of it as possible. And then this December, we will have the grand finals for this $65,000 prize pool event. And, you know, one thing we've been really used to in the past SB with these community events is them being one-offs, right? Them being very contained. Like, hey, here's a 3-week, 1-month event, and then it's over. It's really cool that we're seeing, this is not the only one of this year. We're seeing events now, GKR also happening 4 splits throughout the year with a final at the end of the year. We're seeing more of these community events coming with a year-long perspective rather than just being a one and done.
Yeah, definitely. And the teams as well. It's really refreshing to see. You know, we've been so used to solo for the past 2 years, 3 years even, that we're getting these teams now joining players. The players are starting to brand themselves with a team. We're getting that kind of herd mentality of who do you support and stuff like that. So it's definitely refreshing to see in the esports scene.
And speaking of our teams, our next matchup between 2 teams, our current leaders, PUIGINS, the super team. Mugi, Mohamed Light, Lucas, Griko. What an insane lineup for that squad up against Morten, Faust, and xopxsam for SK Gaming. And, you know, I didn't think that this matchup today was going to be between a 4-0 and an 0-4 team, SB.
No, looking at it before the tournament started, you'd think, oh, these are the top 2 teams, this could possibly be a final, but you wouldn't expect seeing such varying results from the 2 teams going into it. But I still think they're still wanting to beat each other just as bad, just as much, so I think it's going to be just as interesting as it would have been if they were both on top at the minute.
Here we go. Let's jump on into our first matchup, xopxsam against Lucas. And those of you who wanted to see Mohamed Light, you'll have to wait a little bit longer because Lucas would love to make sure that Mo has no opportunity to come out and play in this first set.
And some very meta cards here from both players, not showing so much. Looking like a minor mortar deck here from Sam. Lucas, still unknown. Could be RG with that Monk coming down. Monk's going to be very strong for him in this deck against the cannon cart, the archers. That reflective damage is very good against all of these cards.
And first major exchanges don't give us much.
So yeah, it definitely looks like RG here from Lucas, a deck that he's very comfortable with. Even though Sam looks like he's playing quite a RG counter with this control, Lucas will still know how to beat it.
And pigs to the left, Fireball, easy pick there. And yes, this is King of the Hill, and is it basically winner stays on? King of the Hill is like that. Winner stays on. Each team puts out 3 players. Winner stays, loser goes back to the bench. And with 90 seconds left in this set, the action has been pretty slow so far. How much does the Fireball affect the relationships overall in this matchup?
I think if he's got the archers, it's going to be positive for Lucas. The arrows, sorry. The arrows for the archers. But if he's just got a log, those archers are going to get lots of value. He's going to have to make the decision whether to fireball the mortar or to fireball the archers. But this is a good push for him so far. But a great E-Wiz as well to counter that. That Mighty Mine is going to get a lot of damage coming forward. And because he's got that fireball, it will provide him a lot more stress-free defenses on those pigs because he's always got a get on a jail-free card.
And my favorite of the pigs pushes, and it seems like one of the ones that's done the least by competitive players, so maybe I'm wrong in loving it so much, but the 3-1 push. I really love splitting pigs 3-1 because it makes it feel like they kind of have to really pick their poison, right? Do I defend the bigger set of pigs, or do I defend the tower that's in more trouble, however I split those? But I rarely actually see pros do a 3-1 split. And is it just because they're up against a higher caliber of player that I'm typically up against, or is there another reason why it tends to be either all in one lane or a 2-2?
I think it's just something that pros don't even think about, but I think it's very effective, like you say. It gives the defending player a decision to make. When it's a 2-2 or 4-0, you know, oh, it's half and half, or I just defend that one side. But that 3-1, even if it's just not as effective or it's just the same effectiveness, the fact that you have to ask yourself a question of how you defend it can be a difference in a high stress situation. And Sam, being a great Royal Hogs player, I would trust him in what he's doing with these Royal Hogs.
So here we go, full on to that left-hand lane, getting some more damage. Royal Giant gets DPS down very easily as the E-Wiz, while it was effective for Lucas earlier, not as effective this time around. 90 seconds remaining, and we are pretty close here.
No, a great archers there from Sam. He identified that E-Wiz was going to come down and try to zap his defense there. But those archers come down and very effective. If it wasn't for those archers perfectly being timed, that would have been a lot of damage for Lucas. A small key little factor that could really change the game going forward.
Only one archer hit on that fireball, but lead still goes to Lucas anyway. 16-27 as we go into triple elixir. Both towers now down under 1700 HP for OP Sam, as he needs to find some way to break through. And what is the breakthrough method now? Fireball? Is it just, hey, fireball's gone, go pigs?
Yeah, for Sam here, I think it's going to be hard for him to get too much damage. He's going to be getting, if it's the fireballs in hand, he might get 1 or 2 hits, but Lucas will be spamming in that same lane now that the tower damages are even. So for Sam here, I think it's going to come down to an Earthquake cycle if that's his last card. He's going to try and get Royal Hogs damage as much as possible. It looks like he's going with the aggressive route, hoping just to keep Lucas on his toes and not able to get an RG off. But we'll have to see how that works out for him.
Big damage on the left-hand lane, 1270, and there comes the Earthquake out right now. Royal Giant, will it get the shot? I don't know, and the Royal Giant just barely gets 1, and it gets 2 shots there. 2 shots from the Royal Giant. He was on the right-hand side, and Lucas able to clutch it up in the final seconds.
Yeah, a great win there for Lucas. I think getting that damage on that left side gave Sam that extra thing to think about in that defense. It allowed Lucas to double lane, and it also allowed Lucas to play his troops on that left-hand side and build a counterattack with. Before, he was defending on the left and having to attack on the right, but he allowed to pull all of his troops up together by getting that damage on the left-hand side, and that was the difference with the RG getting the extra 2 shots at the end.
And we see just the little extra damage here, down to 1270. Fireball gets in on the archers, and let's go ahead and walk through just what SB was talking about. This Royal Giant just able to stay alive just the extra little bit long and get the key win. Of course, the E was on the right would have done it as well. Either way, GG, well played. Some people said Lucas. I saw someone say Lucas will win this. Let me go back and actually, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and let's see. Let's go find this. Lucas will lose. Trust me. Well, now you're not. You can't spot me when we're doing rock climbing ever again, BVC, because
no trust.
The trust is gone. Yep. Here we go. Lucas versus Faust, game number 2.
Minor coming down here from Faust. Hunter is something that we're seeing a lot less of now with archers being so strong, and Phoenix. It's normally an option B in most of these decks, so it'll be interesting to see what Lucas is playing here and why he's playing the Hunter with it.
Bruh, it was a typo. You know what? I believe you.
I can't trust you. I can't trust you.
Look, I've seen that lose, L-O-S-E, very close to W-I-N on the keyboard. So super easy to hit that same typo. I've been there.
It happens to the best of us. So it's looking like this minor bomb tower deck coming out from Faust here against looking like another RG from Lucas, unless he's playing a balloon. But it looks like it's going to be an RG lightning, and this screams to me typical Jebu's pick. He must be thinking a specific matchup in mind of an idea of countering Faust.
And Faust, little miner to pick up the queen. Nicely done there by Faust to hold off that damage perfectly, but does find himself in a bit of elixir hole here, about 1.5. Well, 1 and change in favor of Lucas.
Poison going to be very strong here for Faust. It's going to be something that's not really played on tower until it comes down to damage situations at the end of the match. It's going to be played on these Archer Queens at the bridge, the Hunters. It's going to be something that comes down on every one of Lucas's pushes, along with the Phoenix at the bridge. Because if you play that Phoenix at the bridge and a Poison, his defenses to the Phoenix that could counter it get killed, and that Phoenix gets so much damage with its strong DPS.
And now dual lane pressure here. Giant Skeleton, Hunter to the left, RG to the right, Miner again in the middle, trying to do a little bit of control work. And you made a really great point last time you were on here, SB, that the Miner is just a knight that does a little bit less damage. And that's why we're seeing pros utilize it so effectively on defense.
Yeah, Faust here going to have to be very conservative in this matchup. It's one of those decks where you can't overcommit, you can't really make too many mistakes, but if you play perfectly, you'll get that win. This last spell here is going to be quite big for Lucas. Is it going to be the Earthquake? Is it going to be the Lightning? This could change things going into the future. If it's the Earthquake, that bomb tower can get shredded very fast, but if it's the Lightning, you've got the option of getting the Phoenix and the Egg too.
Miner to the back on the left-hand side, and Lucas is going to tank that Miner damage and opt to instead double down on the push. Giant Skeleton plus Hunter left-hand side forces out the poison. The Archer Queen to the middle, maybe hoping to get that Miner placement taken care of, and the NATO... Was the NATO trying to get stuff towards the... I think the bomb tower bomb was already gone?
The NATO there from Lucas, from Faust, was just cycling. You find with this deck, typically, that you're in an awkward cycle and you've got to, say, cycle a NATO at some points. And that's why Lucas is doing the double lane pressure with the Skeleton on one side and the RG on the other. Because if he does the same, he can get that splash damage from that bomb tower. But if he's not got a Golden Knight in hand, Faust, he's really not got too many ground defenses, so he's going to be cycling this NATO on the ground troops just to pull it back before he can get back to his next defense. So great play here from Lucas, identifying the situation and capitalizing from it.
And we do see the spell finally. It's a fireball, so not the EQ, not the lightning. Lucas keeping us all on their toes here. And Royal Giant does not get an extra shot this time around. Archer Queen will stay completely healthy as Faust sets up in the back.
Yeah, Faust is not going to be happy seeing that fireball. With that fireball, if it was a lightning, if it was an earthquake, but he knew it was a fireball, he would have been able to get a lot easier defenses in his previous rounds of attack from Lucas here. Seeing that fireball, thinks, I could have been playing my Phoenix up high, I could have been playing my bomb towers in a safe spot, I could have been doing a lot more things that could have gave me a chance to win this match.
And Fireball will finish things off. Lucas! 2 up, 2 down. And did the overlay just change now? I am all right. I'm good.
No, it just changed. Yeah.
All right. All right, we're good. We're good. And now finally up, last man up for SK Gaming will be their captain and leader, Morten. TGM. Faust will win. I'm pretty sure he wrote that just now, but you know what? I'm going to go ahead and take that one. BVC knew Lucas was going to win. And you know what? Great prediction. Solid prediction there. And I fully support you in making predictions like that one. Let's see. Rage Clash saying, which card do you hate playing against, Rich? Well, notoriously, I hate playing against Golem. Just like win or lose, I hate playing against it. I just don't. Something about it just rubs me the wrong way. And it is the one card where I will break my emotes when I'm playing against Golem. Like I am the most toxic emoter when playing against Golem. I also very much dislike playing against E-Golem. So maybe there's a pattern there between those ones. Those are mine. SB, what do you hate playing against?
Apart from those win conditions that get a lot of advantage from like first plays and luck-based plays, I think usually like cards that just require very specific defenses. So like the Sparky, if you've not got the right counter to it, it's just so crushing. And that too with the Prince as well. If you've not got the right counter for a Prince in the back or a Sparky in the back, it's just something that you want to cry to. Apart from if I had to say it would definitely be the Golem, but things like the Sparky, the Prince, they just require perfect counters. Something I don't enjoy playing against.
Here we go. Morten coming in against Lucas. And Morten opening up with a little bit of EQ cycle. RG with Firecracker right behind it.
Yeah, very aggressive play here from Lucas, and typically we're okay with seeing that. If he's got that Firecracker and Morten has the Earthquake, he normally doesn't have arrows, so he knows that that Firecracker will keep pushing back, keep getting all of his defenses that Morten used to defend that RG and to kill it, and that's what we've seen here. He went in with that attack, however, the Raven Elixir, he's not really lost any damage, and he's fine going forward.
Hog pressure opposite lane. Fishboy not in cycle, so Lucas has to rely on DPS and give up a couple of hog shots here.
Yeah, great hog there from Morten, identifying that he's not got that fisherman. He's not even got the monk or another counter, because that phoenix is not really ideal for countering the hog. Although it's great against other attackers, against the hog, it's 2 hits no matter what all the time.
And nice timing here with the archers, but even better timing from Lucas with the firecracker. Does the hog shot hit? And it does, just barely. And, you know, you talk about failed King Tower activations, that would have been a brutal one.
Yeah, definitely, Rich. But going into this now, I don't think Morten's going to be too bothered about that King Tower activation. He's going to be looking at getting 1 hit maximum every time. All he's going to be doing is try to outcycle the fisherman. And apart from that, it'll just be earthquake damage from now on, I think, from Morten. Unless he gets that 1 hog hit from time to time.
And now Lucas trying to hedge against the next hog hit. Cycling that monk into the left-hand lane into double elixir time. And I think we're going to see, yeah, Lucas just deciding that the game should be played in the weak side lane here.
And a great ability there, reflecting that log. That's going to be hard for Morten to deal with now. It's an extra card that would have been countered otherwise.
Monk down, DPS trying to work on the RG, but they can't quite get to it as birds keep on flocking forward into the pathway. And this Royal Giant, now with the Fisherman support, going to get a whole lot. Nice Ice Spirit from Morten to stop the bleeding, but damage done, and we are just about tied as we reach the final 20 seconds of regulation.
Yeah, this lane switch here from Lucas proving to be very strong. I think especially as well, that ability can't go unnoticed. It enabled that firecracker to stay alive, killing Morten's archers on that defense, and that changed a lot of the interactions going on forward now into this match.
1763 to 1609, another Royal Giant at the bridge. Morten just having no opportunity to get back on offense as he's having to spend so much time, focus, and elixir on these defenses. And now you'll see he plays this defense and is left still way behind on elixir.
Yeah, I think this all comes down to the lane switch here from Lucas, identifying that if I go same lane, I can just keep putting those RGs. He can't push back into me, he can't do an opposite lane pressure, because, well, it's going to give me an extra push.
And nice EQ log to get the firecracker out and maintain that lead. The reflection trying to change that story. The Royal Giant does stay alive and gets a shot. Gets a second shot here, gets a third shot as it's being tanked for, and that just blew this game wide open.
Yeah, definitely, Rich. It feels like everything just from the overtime onwards has just gone into Lucas's favour. Not ideal for Morten, and I don't think he's going to have a chance to come back in this game now because of it.
Ice Spirit trying to hold reflection from the monk, doing a lot of work, and lightning in nicely timed. Gets on the mortar. There's no stopping that Royal Giant. Lucas comes out and says, you want to see Mohamed Light? Well, you see me talk trash about him on Twitter. I don't want to show him to you. You get nothing. You get no Mo today. That's his goal.
And it looks like a day of sweeps here today as well, by the looks of things. Will we see more coming forward? Will we see a sweep from SK now, following the trend of the first game?
We have been seeing a lot in the sweep category. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the action from this one. And the hog to the right-hand side tries to put some significant damage. This was a nice little EQ play plus log, but you still see so much on the board already. The monk, the phoenix, the RG, mortar now trying to control, but at this point the elixir advantage just so far in favor of Lucas. And once these archers come off the board, check out what happens here. The slight change, everything tanking for the RG, and that kind of was, I think, the story here in this one, SB, was that over and over again, he's trying to get DPS on that Royal Giant, and everything just kept on tanking every other piece of DPS, every other piece of damage, and keeping the Royal Giant on the board longer and longer.
Yeah, another case of 1 HP going against Morten, I think, in this situation here. That RG getting 3 shots is huge. You know, typically speaking, you want to be getting perfect defenses against that RG every time and getting the Earthquake off in between those attacks, but not to be for Morten here.
Well, let's see our lineups for SK Gaming for our second set. Currently in, it's going to be xopxsam, Morten, and Faust. PUIGINS going Griko, Mugi, and Mohamed Light. So it looks like PUIGINS doing their best to not let anybody see Mohamed Light play today. We'll see if SK Gaming can get through Griko and Mugi to give at least some view of the world champion. But, you know, I'm sure Lucas is tickled not just by his performance, but also by denying Mohamed Light fans a chance to see his friend.
Yeah, definitely, and what a privilege it would be to be in a team where you have the ability to rest Lucas and sub in another top-tier player who you're just as confident in as well.
Yeah, I mean, I said this yesterday, but it's crazy to me that anytime you're on a team where Griko is the bottom-tier player of your team, you've got an insane squad. And that's what we're seeing here is he's a world-class player, and I think that everyone would rank Mo, Lucas, Mugi on top of him. It's just insanity. Yeah,
I think bar Morten, I think this would be the top 4 players right now in Clash Royale, technically speaking. You know, in the history of Clash Royale, I don't think we would ever have seen a team in any team format this strong. Because normally we see with teams in person, you know, you've got to have the team cohesion, you've got to have a bit of friendship as well as the skill going along with it in order to you know, create that great team environment. But when it's online, you know, when there's no other factors in place, just having that absolute ultimate team is something quite special.
Yeah, and certainly, I said this one yesterday as well. People are like, oh, he's like, Mohamed Light is like Kevin Durant. He's going to go and try to make a super team to win everything. And it's like, look, if no one's paying salaries to these players and they're being broken up on the different teams, why not just go ahead and form up, be like, hey, should we try to take all the money? Yeah, let's take all the money. That seems like the move that we're going to go with. So we'll see if anyone can get through this. And our first lineup, actually, I said this, players changing their names over and over again. And our first matchup here is going to be between xopxsam and Lentils. And Lentils is the new name of... Oh, maybe they're making a last-second change here. No, it's going to be Lucas. Never mind. I really thought, what is going on here? Oh, they're subbing Lucas in for Griko. All right. So it's going to be Lucas xopxsam as opposed to Lentils. But Lentils used to be Griko last year. He used to be Miku before that. And that's the person who, like, you talk about someone's name just continuously changing. It's like, who are you? We can't keep up.
Yeah, they even changed their Twitter names too, you know. I sometimes search them to see how they're doing in competitions, and you just can't find them anywhere, to where you have to go onto the Royal API just to find their Twitter link.
Yeah, I wonder if that's, no one's taught them a lesson on branding, or if that's just that they don't feel settled. Lentils is also maybe the best, Miku, fine, Griko, okay. You went with a small bean as the final one.
Yeah.
Interesting choice.
Maybe I need to do that. It might provide me a bit more success if I just keep on changing my name to random things.
Yeah, well.
What about quinoa? Quinoa next season for me sounds quite good.
Well, you have to go with a great. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We have quinoa. We have lentils.
Yeah. Could be rice. Could be barley. Oh, there's so many options.
Quite a few. Maybe you throw in a vegetable there and go kale.
Oh yeah. God, now we're spitballing. There's just so much we can do.
Or you keep it real Aussie and go Vegemite.
That could be an option too. Stay on brand as well. Really create something around there. Possible sponsorship deals as well coming out of that too.
Strong call. Speaking of strong calls, I want to ask. This is a question I meant to ask you about a few games ago. We got sidetracked by it. We see 2 cards, both 3 elixir here in the Bandit and the Royal Ghost. Not counting win conditions. These are 2 good examples, and they've been really good at it in this competition. Not counting win conditions. What do you consider the top opposite lane pressure cards in the game?
So I would say number 1 right now has got to be Wall Breakers. For 2 elixir, although you can counter them with skeletons, if you don't have that counter in hand, that's so much damage. So it's quite a high skill cap card. I don't think it's overpowered in essence. I think it's just good in the hands of the good players. Other than that, like you say, the Ghost, the Bandit, these little things. E-Barbs at one point as well, such a strong card. Lumberjack because it moves so fast. Even a Mini P.E.K.K.A. If you've not got squishy troops and you're having to play, I don't know, let's say a Bandit into a Mini P.E.K.K.A., it's just something that's going to be very hard to deal with. It's all these pressure cards are all to do with, you counting their elixir. So I think it's more the player that makes them effective, but it's just you being able to identify when it's a good time to play them.
And unfortunate NATO. With you talk about pressure cards, those wall breakers, unfortunate situation there for xopxsam is he takes a ton of damage. So far, Lucas, clean sheet on his side of the board. xopxsam in a lot of trouble early.
Yeah, just perfect plays from Lucas here overall, I think, in all of these matches so far. xopxsam's saving grace here is that he does have a control deck. He does have a deck that, you know, slightly does better in double elixir against Lucas's deck that's not as strong in double, but that early damage from Lucas could be pivotal in this matchup result.
And someone is calling out your English accent as opposed to your the lack of an Aussie accent. And yes, he's a transplant, but coming to us live from Perth in the middle of the night is SB.
Yeah, I'm all over the place. I've spent half my life in Australia, half my life in England. I used to have a really strong regional English accent, but now I think moving to Australia has made me more a general English accent, generally speaking.
You can still hear some of the regional flair there.
Yeah, I think some words come out. I don't say I don't say water or anything like that anymore. I think it's more just a general twang of all different English accents.
And big love to Sahal and all of the support coming in from Ireland. And I was asked the other day, and maybe you would know better than me, has there ever been an Irish pro player? We've had Scotland, we've had England.
Yeah. See, I'm friends with one. He's called. He used to be called I Killed Kenny, based off the Southbox. He was in the Combine for 2018, I think it was. And there's been a few others. Someone called Turtle Powder, who was from Ireland but was from the US. He used to be a Goblin player. Someone called Morgan too. All these players used to play in like the previous nation comps. They were never top, but they have been some great players from Ireland over the years.
And tried to stretch that whole thing thin. Did Lucas and gets some pretty good value out of it. This Magic Archer not getting the lineup he might have wanted, but the Golden Knight dash getting in deep, and the Magic Archer staying on the board. Can Sam continue to protect here and opts not to, instead resets after doing all that damage?
Yeah, this is what I was saying about Sam's saving grace here, being him a lot stronger in double. It's going to be hard for Lucas to keep on defending these, but a bit aggressive there from Sam here. If this this NATO Magic Archer pays off, it's great, but I think it's going to be hard for him to defend this push now because of it.
And we saw the same thing yesterday from him, I believe, as well. So a little extra at a given moment with the Magic Archer NATO pressure, and going to give up some damage, and probably add that elixir lead as that cannon cart goes down. Here we are.
Yeah, a great defense there from Sam though. I was saying, you know, it could be bad if he can't defend it, but he's just kind of defended it quite easily. So I think that's all down to his counters and the King Char activation here, all being key for him.
And the Phoenix Egg pushes the Miner back onto the tower. Prince doing its job holding. Miner on. There's no way for doing real damage here, and Lucas gonna take the win.
Yeah, some good pressure there from Lucas. The Prince at the bridge was very unlucky for Sam though. Attacking the Magic Archer instead of the other troop at the bridge. That could have been the difference in this game.
Here we go. Let's revisit those last 30 seconds. And you see the lead for xopxsam with 23 seconds left, 8:11:81 to 10:59. Now look at this Miner. When the Phoenix pops, the Miner gets pushed away from everything directly onto the tower and gets a few very key shots. And then this Prince up high, the Magic Archer does not get the connection. GG, well played. And I think, you know, we've talked about the traitorous cards in this game, SB, because there are some cards that just do you dirty sometimes. The Fisherman, of course, being one of those cards that will betray you on occasion, especially, you know, if you cycle the wrong thing at the wrong time, end up with a giant skeleton on your tower, that sort of thing. But the Phoenix may be a little underrated with that, because this is now I think the second or third time this competition that we've seen a Phoenix death knock actually on defense knock an opposing player's troop directly onto tower as opposed to help on the defensive side.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, Risk, because I actually just lost a ladder game about 5 hours ago because a Phoenix bomb died right on top of a hog that would have normally pulled to my mortar in the middle, but that hog got on tower in the last second. I unfortunately lost. So I think it's something that pros are going to have to start thinking about. You know, if they see a Phoenix about to die, play a bit more conservatively and think what could happen because of this now.
Here we go. Lucas currently 4-0. Can he go 5? Morten would love to stop that from happening.
And these two cards from Morten here, very anti-meta. I've not saw these in competition too much recently. Does that snowball allow the Phoenix to pop? No, it doesn't. When the Phoenix first came out, that was a great play. It used to always get that Phoenix head popping out, but because of the recent nerfs, it's not as strong anymore. Could be a mirror matchup here. It's likely that we're seeing a Loon Miner versus a Loon Miner. I was saying before that Loon wasn't as strong, but it's only playable when you've got the arrows, when you've got the snowball, when you've got the Miner to counter all the possible counters to it.
Well, we'll see if we do end up getting a Miner Loon mirror. For now, the lead firmly in the direction of Morten after some nice little Miner touches. Almost 200 HP for the German with just over 90 seconds left.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the strategy is here for how we win this. Is it going to be Miner damage? Is it going to be one big push? Is it going to be a combination of the two? Who knows?
You know, when we're looking at how you defend these balloon pushes when they do come in, right? You have the Phoenix, you have the Archers, you have the Snowball for the knockback. What do you anticipate being the primary defensive methodology? I'm assuming there's a building here on each side.
Yeah, both will most likely have Bomb Tower here. I think the primary way of defending it is not being predictable. So in some defenses, you're going to be using that Phoenix, you're going to be using the Bomb Tower and a Snowball. Sometimes you're not going to use any air cards. You're just going to play that Bomb Tower, hope for an arrows prediction, but a big giant skeleton death damage here from Lucas gives him the lead. So yeah, going back to what I was saying, it's about being unpredictable. Most players will have those arrows in hand, always ready for the archers. So the archers, generally speaking, aren't as effective because they've got a counter to them in hand already. So it's typically going to be Phoenix, building, snowball, switch it up as much as you can.
And the Miner does go to generally the right spot. Doesn't get the bomb tower off. Still death damage in, 1544 to 1351. Snowball on defense will keep that balloon far away, but the 500-ish HP lead for Lucas holds as we go into sudden death overtime.
And an interesting play here from Lucas is, I think this is quite niche in the pro community. Normally, as a player, you would think Miner to tank for the Loon, but in these mirror matchups, you generally see the Loon coming first, and then the Miner coming down afterwards. And that's because Miner counters for each of these players aren't actually that good. So the main damage is going to be Loon death damage, hopefully, and then a Miner to the back to get that damage with the archers, with the arrows for the archers, and that's going to be your main source of damage going into the later stage of the game when you're likely not to get any more giant skeleton death damages or balloon hits when you've got more elixir for defense.
And good Miner catch. Defense holds on that sequence for Morten. 90 seconds left. And this bridge fight, we see the balloons on both sides and the balloon, oh, interesting. I thought the balloon from Lucas or from Morten would be knocked further in, but instead it's the balloon from Lucas pushed further out. Death damage will get on, 826 to 1254.
And see that Lucas opting not to use a building there, being unpredictable, utilising the giant skeleton bomb that was coming down. Still gets death damage though, but luckily he gets death damage himself, so it counters it, and he's still in the lead going forward.
826, 1080, 55 seconds left. Miner goes to the inside corner this time from Lucas, being unpredictable with those Miners, arrows, archers trying to work, and then arrows take off the archers. They don't support the Miner, but they do continue to maintain that exact same lead. Miner being fully tanked this time by Lucas as he chooses to get on the offensive rather than play the defensive here.
Yeah, and a great snowball there from Morten. Getting onto King Tower. It looks like it could be slightly fading into Morten's advantage right now. It's going to be a matter of miners and spells. The Loon is just a pressure element, an extra element for Lucas to think about on defense. But that Miner is going to get a lot of damage. He's going to have the arrows ready, the snowball.
And
it's going to be very close here.
46 HP. Trying to catch Miners is Morten. The Archer does catch that Miner. He goes to the inside, gets the tower down. Morten plays brilliantly from behind and stops Lucas from rampaging all the way through SK Gaming.
Yeah, definitely. Lucas is going to be kicking himself about that Miner being allowed to snowball. But great. I think what won Morten the game there at the end was just being more aggressive. Yeah, the bridge battles were all the same. It was a giant skeleton on top of a Phoenix, but Morten was more aggressive with those Miners, more aggressive with those arrows, and especially that King Tower activation at the end was key.
And this is just after that King Tower activation. You can see the HP pretty similar, But look at the difference in how these defenses against those miners were played as well. If we take a step back right here and give me just one moment as I will cue that one up, you're going to see the arrows come in and 505 to 425 at the moment. And take a look at the differences. They both go ahead and play their miners. Both miners will get on tower here. And at the moment, you can see the lead still slightly for Lucas by just a little bit. He's ahead on damage, ahead on rhythm. But then look at the difference in how they defend these. The giant skeleton comes in, uses that big mass, and pushes the miner off, retargeting it, whereas these archers come down, and you see they don't retarget the miner. The snowball comes in, and that created just enough gap between those two. Morten gets the win. Let's go ahead, jump in to game number 3 as the 2022 World Champion comes out for PUIGINS.
And a typical Morten play here, those wall breakers in the back. Not many people do that, and Morten does it because he plays them in the back, and then typically you'll play your counters in the back too, so you can react to them proactively and hopefully get a wall breaker hit early on.
People asking, will Morten reverse sweep here? Of course, Morten fans would love to see him come out and have a hot performance after it's been a cold week for SK.
And it's nice to see Morten playing a comfort deck here. He's going to be very strong with it. He's going to know exactly what he wants to do. I think he's definitely probably one of the strongest minor wall breaker players in the game.
And great point here. Being down 1,000 HP because of a giant skeleton death bomb and then coming back to win is some GOAT stuff.
Ooh, this is going to be a very tough matchup for Morten though. It's looking like it's going to be possibly E-Giant, and normally with this last card we either see Miner or Balloon, which is going to be very hard for Morten to deal with on top of the E-Giant, because you play that building to drag the E-Giant, and then they play a Loon on top of it that doesn't get pulled by the building, with the arrows paired, and you've got no counter to the Balloon. It seems like it's a very strong but strange anti-meta deck that's reappearing into the meta now.
Yeah, we saw some of this, that same deck, I believe, on Wednesday in Royale Masters and yesterday in our Queso Cup action.
And Morten's deck is why we're seeing it so much. It's a perfect counter. It's just not able to deal with all of its offensive units.
And
with that King Tower activation, yeah, it's going to be very hard for Morten to deal with. Without that King Tower, his pressure in the opposite lane is a lot more effective. Mugi's not able to just liberally play those E-Giants like he is. But now, because of the Fishermen, because of the Archers, he can drag everything to the middle, paired with the King Tower. But not a good Loon there from Mugi, getting tanked by the tower, ideally not what he was doing. And then Morten capitalising on this, going with the opposite lane pressure and getting some damage in.
And it looks like Morten wants to get out here and get some revenge, and with the good damage on the right-hand side, certainly has put that more in reach. But this is the big push you're worried about.
Yeah, and I think Mugi will just tank these wall breakers here. He only gets one hit with the archers coming down. Morten cycles that bomb tower early so he can get a second one down, and I think that's going to get him the defense. That was a great defense. Cycling the bomb tower here is very carefully, but that very smart. But then you see the second E-Giant coming down, and this is when it's hard for a minor player to deal with all of this stuff.
Very, very, very low on elixir here, and how does Morten contend with this next balloon? Poison and the archers get taken off. Poison can fully counter Loon for the connection. Doesn't do it here, though.
Yeah, Poison now slowing the Loon after the recent patch. Using that slowing thing like we saw, I think it was 2017 when Poison last slowed, and then they took it out when it became so strong, but now back in it again. So it's more effective against countering against these types of troops.
And is this lane change mostly just to set up opportunities to open into the other lane, or is...
I think it's down to the archers being cycled. He knows that archers are the only counter to the Loon, so if those archers have been cycled, he knows that he's going to have to cycle back to them, and then he has to play the arrows on them.
And the Loon gets all the way
big connection there. But I've got to say, Morten's played this game very well. It shouldn't normally be this close. Oh, and Nada could have gone on the tower there, but arrows come down anyway. All good for Mugi.
So there you have it. Morten does go down. Mugi taking the win here, and you'll have to hope that Faust can take down Mugi if you want to see Mohamed Light play today. Otherwise, you'll have to wait again until tomorrow. And of course, speaking of tomorrow, this is day 5 of our league stage here in the first split of this event. And again, we are in the league portion. Top 6 teams of these 8 will move on to our playoffs April 22nd and 23rd, but we still have 2 more days left of league play after this one to decide who those top 6 will be. So if you haven't yet, go ahead, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, make sure you come back, because not only is there more Queso Cup coming right now and tomorrow and Sunday and at the end of April, but there's more Queso Cup all year. July and August, our second split, last chance qualifiers and grand finals this December. And on top of all of that, we're doing GKR. On top of all of that, we're going to be doing some other events that I can't announce yet as we are still finalizing them, but it's going to be Clash Royale competition here all throughout the year, including most months or many months you'll be seeing a lot of the CRL monthly qualifier stage, that top 32 group stage right here on the channel as well. So if you want to catch the top 32 players vying for those top 8 spots in our CRL monthly qualifiers, another great place to watch that right here on my channel.
And I've got to say, Rich, I hope I'm not casting that with you. I hope to be in this monthly finals coming up. After doing all right in the first one, it would be great if I could do well in the next one too.
Well, I certainly hope that you are not back here for the group stage and for any of those monthly qualifiers. But if you are, if it just so happens that, you know, your thumb slips and you don't make it to those top 32 for some reason.
The Wi-Fi, the lag, the matchups, who knows? It could be any of those things, but yeah, I'll definitely be up for it.
Miner caught by Mugi. And Faust back to the deck that is the most popular in the competitive meta right now, it seems.
Yeah, slight change here in this deck as well. He's got the bats here from Faust. It allows you to outplay slightly. It's one of those cards that can punish you if you don't have a good counter to it. But then also, it's not got that same defensive like rigidity as a Phoenix would. You know, it can also just be zapped if you're against a lava or something like that. But it allows you to do those minor wall breakers, opposite lane, and pressure.
And
big damage here, though.
Yeah, that's probably GG with that tower down at this stage. And that's what this deck does. It just gets you thirsty, and you're out in the desert, and you think you see an oasis, but it's actually just a mirage, and then you die.
Yeah, Mega Knight Prince pushes is slowly becoming the new goal in first place. I think a lot of pros are really just hating defending them against him. It's something that you don't really have to think about as a Mega Knight player. You just play that Prince in the back, play a Mega Knight, and all you can be is up 1 elixir, 2 elixir, or not have the perfect counter in hand, and that comes and takes your tower. And especially against a mana control deck, that's not what you want to happen against you.
And trying to get some minor work done, but not going to happen. And not all minor decks are created equally, and that's, I think, the point you make there is, you know, we have one version of a minor deck that's, you know, anything but minor control, really. It's minor pressure, onslaught, avalanche comes down, and you find yourself waiting for a St. Bernard with an emergency kit. Whereas Mugi playing minor control, and a loss like that, gonna happen sometimes.
Yeah.
And this is, those of you who wanted to see it, folks, Faust, happy to provide. The defending world champion will be up next for CAL PUIGINS to see if he can end SK Gaming's day in the second set, or if we will go to a third and final. And SB, while we're waiting for that third and final to come in, and we're going to see the nominations here in a moment, I do see a good question from someone in the chat. Let me go back up and bring it because I did see it. What do you think of Mega Draft being on Path of Legends? The very maybe broke Twitter yesterday, and I kind of want your thoughts on the month of April being Mega Draft for Path of Legends.
Yeah, for me personally, I really like Mega Draft. I was someone who played it before it was even in the global tournament. You know, I was just playing it with friends. It was a refreshing new way to play Clash Royale. It wasn't heavily matchup based because at the end of the day, you choose the matchups. If you've got a bad matchup, it's because you picked wrong. But I think generally speaking, I'm quite neutral. I think going into it, I'll be excited to play a month of Mega Draft, maybe 4 weeks in, when it's the last hour of the season and I've played 4 weeks of Mega Draft, I might not feel the same. I might love it, I might hate it, but I think it's something that we can't judge too much. As a player, I'm quite versatile, so I acknowledge that if you've got a real passion for one deck, or you're a content creator and you like showcasing other decks, you might not have that opportunity. But I think it will bring new opportunities too. You know, you've got a chance to make different strategies. You know, we don't know. There could be a meta that comes out of Mega Draft in itself. Even though you've got to choose these cards, we might see new cards being better that weren't played before because of what's being played. So who knows what happens? I think it's better to be conservative and see how it goes.
Well, we'll see, of course. That'll be the month of April. Mega Draft starting very soon, but not today. Today we are in duel mode for our final matchup, and I thought it was supposed to be in-game duels, and looks like they've maybe switched to normal duels, to non-in-game duels for this one. So maybe a little...
Is it the hill still?
Oh, no, it's... no, yeah, we're in...
Yeah, I think the graphic's wrong where it says 1-0 at the end because we're 2-2 in King of the Hill, right?
Oh, yeah. We're at King of the Hill. So here we go. All over the place. You know, I'm like Ron Burgundy, right? You see, I see the graphic, I follow the graphic. But here we go. We are in King of the Hill. Final game. Mohamed Light versus Faust.
And a Fisherman in the back here. Risky from Mao. I know we don't see much Giant Skeleton, but you never know what happens.
And
an aggressive graveyard here.
And this is 100% XABA's. This is all. I mean, maybe Mo made this pick too, but you know, I asked XABA's what is the counter to the minor MK Prince deck, and XABA said this was the first deck on his list, the Giant XAlee Graveyard. I don't think they're in that situation, but still, that was what this pick was trying to hedge against that deck.
Yeah, and that's why it's great working with Mo. You know, you could give him any deck and he'll play it perfectly to where you can always get the counter for him. It must be a privilege to work with him. Looking like RG here from Faust, though. Probably has Fireball, RG as his last two cards. Could be interesting to see how this goes. I think, generally speaking, it will be slightly Faust matchup, but a lot of things can change.
And, you know, one thing you'll see pros do a lot better than non-professional players is make the choice, and look at that, Fisherman down, RG all in it. Great reflections by this Monk, and that's going to be a ton of Royal Giant damage. And Mo just so low on Elixir right now. That Royal Giant going to get most of the shots that it could possibly come up with, and not quite tower down, but effectively down. That should be GG.
Yeah, I think that is GG, Rich. I think I wouldn't normally want to say this, but I think Mo might have misplayed there with that early graveyard. I think he wouldn't have had to deal with so much of a counterattack if he had the Elixir in hand, if was still feeling him out, if Faust still didn't know exactly what he was playing. But yeah, great damage there from Faust in one push.
And trying to make a graveyard do something late, but not going to have time to get around to it. Skeleton King ability won't be doing it, and Faust clutches up here for SK Gaming, and we're going to go to set number 3.
And I think CAL PUIGINS have got a dilemma here. Who'd you put set 3? You know, Lucas has just won 4 games, but then you've got Mo, the best player in the world, but he's just lost. So what goes on in that team?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a very few situations where I would have Mo available and I wouldn't play him. The only one might be is if we switched from Clash Royale to kickboxing. Maybe at that point, maybe I'd bench Mo and take somebody else. But yeah, that would be my pick. But who knows what they go with in this situation? Maybe Lucas says, "Coach, I want the ball. Give me the ball," and gets himself right back in there.
Yeah, ego's at play definitely in this situation. You know, you've got all the top players, and they're all going to want to play. But sometimes you just got to lay the hat down and let Mo take it, I think.
And will we see Mo versus Morten? Says Hussein. That'd be interesting. You know, I think maybe that's the bigger question, right? Because on the side of PUIGINS, you can just throw a dart at the wall, and whichever one it lands on is the player you put out there. I think SK has a harder call. Do you put Morten out there, or do you send Faust back out again after just taking down 2 back-to-back world champions?
We see here Faust versus Mohamed Light is the final matchup. Going with the form of Faust versus the experience of Mo. Going to be interesting here, see how it goes.
And Starscream saying, I just got here, saw some flicks like half an hour ago, like a movie. Can you explain the Twitter trash talk thing? Oh, just Mo and Lucas are friends. But I think Lucas is definitely a little tired of hearing everyone how great Mo is. And if there's anyone who's more tired of hearing that, it's the man who, the only person to win back-to-back monthly finals in 2021, and the guy who would love to get everyone to stop talking about his friend if he could win a world championship this year.
Yeah, I never knew that about Lucas winning back-to-back monthly finals, and apparently he did it without an analyst as well, which I didn't know too, but just recently found out.
Yeah, well, the guy can get it done, and I see someone asking, why aren't you streaming on Twitch? I am. I'm on both Twitch and YouTube. YouTube's the primary stream, but for those of you who want, I know a lot of the pros are preferring to watch on Twitch just because of the quieter chat more than anything else. But yes, we are live on both Twitch and YouTube, so wherever you prefer to watch, go ahead and watch there. And the VOD will be available here on YouTube for many of you to watch later if you like. So here we go. Set number 3, Faust versus Mohamed Light, in-game duels. And, you know, I guess there's no game mode where you say is Mo's best game mode because, you know, we did a tournament. We did a major international tournament in Mega Draft mode, and Mohamed Light won that one as well. But this really is the game mode that the rise of duels was the timing, at least, that turned Mohamed Light from a really great player to being best on the planet.
Yeah, even going back to like 2020 Cyril when he was in Kicks team, he was one of the best 2v2 players too. It seems like it just translates across all game modes for Mo.
And Spot'em Golem asking, is there any Aussie pros? Yes, there is one on this stream right now. He is currently ranked 17th in the world.
I'll take it.
You're currently number 17 on the CRL rankings. That's...
Hey, if there's an Aussie pro, it would be me. But it's a question whether you could call me a pro.
Whether you count as Aussie. Or whether you count as pro.
Well, no. A bit of both, actually. You've got two to contend with. Who do I choose to play for?
Magic Archer getting a nice line up here. And I guess as long as the question is being raised, I mean, we'll address that question later. Let's instead focus on Faust versus Mohamed Light. And Mo opting to go with the Musketeer will be very happy in this matchup since we're assuming Golden Knight is part of this seeming drill deck.
Yeah, but if anyone's going to beat this matchup, it's definitely going to be Mo. It'll be interesting to see how he plays this. It'll be something to look forward to as a multiplayer, knowing how to win this matchup. But Faust is going to probably play very slowly, very solidly. Oh, and a Hog. That's not what you want to see from Mo. Minor gives you a chance, but Hog... going to be even harder for him.
And
opting not to activate King Tower there. A Dark Prince as well, very solid. It's a better counter against Mighty Miner. It's instead of Royal Ghost being invisible to Mortar, it allows another thing for it to lock onto as well.
And it's going to be really hard for Mohamed Light to deal with the troops behind the bridge fights too, so this is going to be a real challenge. Decides to go more to the right-hand lane. Golden Knight to pick up.
And that Magic Archer too. You're always going to have to spend a Musketeer, but then you've got a Cannon Cart and a Golden Knight coming down the other lane.
And a lot of damage as the Golden Knight does get a connection on the tower. 1421 on that left-hand side. Faust, if you need... Hey, SK Gaming needs a win. They're in the most unlikely of matchups in terms of teams to get that win. But Faust doing everything right at the moment to try to make that happen.
And having to use a Hog and a Log to defend that drill is not what you want to see, and then it gets the King Tower activation as well. All textbook style from Faust here. I think it looks like it's very much his matchup, but any other player in this situation apart from Faust still could find it very hard to deal with what Mo does.
Hog to the right. NATO not quite back yet, so has to DPS this one down instead. The Cannon Cart does connect, though, and that probably is the nail in the coffin here.
Yeah, Mo went for a predictive play on that right-hand side, hoping to get a last chance effort at winning the game. Unfortunately, it doesn't pay off, but he had to go for it, at least just to get the win.
NATO out. We haven't seen Mo with Miner yet. Maybe he'll go Miner here in game number 2. And I don't know why there we go, keeping that overlay back where it was.
So log out for Mo, that's quite a big thing. You normally want to save your log decks because they're generally stronger, but he'll have like a poison snowball option, a poison nado option, which just looks like he's gonna do this now.
And looks like it's going to be minor control for Mohamed Light in game number 2. Just talking about dual mode basics for those of you who are new to the mode or trying to figure out how to play it. Maybe you make it into the Swiss bracket, haven't played it very much. The most basic aspect of dual mode is looking at your spells, win conditions, and champions. Nado's out, Hog Rider and Miner suddenly get a whole lot better. Log's out, hey, what gets better when Log is gone? Oh, someone already played
RG.
Light. Do you have
RG is actually very good against no log decks. Typically, you don't see Log as like a great counter to RG, but it really is. Even Ice Spirit being out is advantage for RG.
Right, so that's the big thing, is talking about just these little things of you play your best, whatever you can play game number 1, and then you make your decisions in game 2 and game 3.
And game 1 as well, it's also a strategy leaving a lot of cards open going into the further matches, so you've got more options. A good Nado activation there against those goblins. Faust trying to punish it, but I don't think it's going to work unless that doesn't pull to the bomb tower, but it does. Great defense there from Mo. With the King to activation, he's in the driving seat for the rest of the game.
Archer gets
I think
away.
Faust,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think Faust is overestimating how little elixir Mo had there. He had a lot more than he thought, and he was able to get that defense off because of it.
Lord Baelish. This is good for CR to see Mo lose. It keeps making things exciting. Well, Mo hasn't lost yet. Losing a game, he's done plenty of that. Can he lose? Will he lose the set?
Yeah, we saw this in monthly finals. He looked like he was down and out, but then pulls it back last second, and we just say typical Mo. But Faust here, definitely in the driving seat in the game-wise, but I think it's going to come down to 1-1.
And the pre-Ice Spirit from Mohamed Light, just really understanding the rhythm of this game.
Yeah, Ice Spirit key here for always collecting that miner. You know, it's obviously miner versus miner. We shouldn't see wall breakers connecting too much. We're going to see poisons being cycled without a miner on the tower, going into triple, going into double. And it's just going to be who can catch miners, who can be more unpredictable with the miners, who can cycle them faster.
And Golden Knight out early. And again, it's Mohamed Light just staying way ahead of the miners of Faust. As we go into sudden death overtime, the lead 17-30 to 11-92. And Faust
Mo
is not
seems
able
to
to
always be getting these miners on towers, yeah. And with that Golden Knight being in cycle as well, no mighty miner in cycle for Faust means that Mo's going to be cycling a lot faster every time. And it's likely we see even just a poison on tower here from Mo. There we go.
And this time goes to the back once again. Wallbreaker's picked up high by the bomb tower. Down to under 700 HP is the right-hand tower of Faust, but cycling poisons and logs here. So a little bit more spell power. And we're talking about getting that damage, but you don't catch miners. That's a huge problem. Tries to Nado Golden Knight. Doesn't make it happen, but that should be sufficient to get the win for Mohamed Light anyway.
Yeah, that Golden Knight there was even just enough of a fear factor for him not to be able to play those goblins to defend that miner. He had to play the archers in the back and just accept that that miner was going to get a lot of damage on tower, because if he plays those goblins, it's likely that the Golden Knight attacks the tower.
All right, here we go. Nado out on both sides. Golden Knight, Mighty Miner now out on both sides. We already saw Mohamed Light run Skeleton King Graveyard once before, but the best deck that would counter not available for Faust. So we'll see what they have in store at the end. Mohamed Light maybe. No, I don't think either one's going to go. Unlikely E going from either side now with Nado Golden Knight out as well.
Yeah, it seems like they've not got many options really. It seems like those first two decks from both of them kind of cancelled out a lot of what they could have played. I think we'll see an RG here from Mo. He's not going to have a log there, remember, so he's probably playing with a bar barrel, which is slightly less optimal, but that's what you've got to do in duels.
Magic Archer, the protection for it from the Monk doing its thing for a minute there, reflecting the hooks from the fisherman.
This possibly means that Mo could be playing Bridge Spam with the Magic Archer. It is a strong deck, and there we see the Lumberjack. Bridge Spam's a lot stronger because you don't have you don't have to use the log, you don't have to lose the snowball, so you can use that barb barrel, which means it's quite a strong deck in duels, and Mo has been practicing it a lot recently.
That's a fully healthy push on the right-hand side. Giant skeleton.
Yeah, so much to deal with here. And not one thing that counters all, definitely. You want to use the zappies, but then that won't stop it all. You go with the giant skeleton and just have to take that Ram Rider hit.
And Mohamed Light going to be up a lot on Elixir. Going to spend 2 just to make sure that the Ghost doesn't connect. Leaves him up 1 in Elixir, but up about 500 in damage, as Faust has done a good job of chipping away at the left-hand side early. As we go 15 seconds left in the double Elixir time. This is interesting. Where do you see the double and then triple advantage between these two?
I think it's going to all be about the Inferno Dragon here for Mo. If he can fireball those zappies and get lots of Inferno Dragon damage, I think it's going to be advantage Mo, generally speaking. But all it takes is Faust to get one big push, and you know it goes straight back to him.
And the fireball going to draw in towards the pigs. Flying Machine stays on the board. Zappy split 2 to the left, 1 to the right. Royal Ghost needs to be controlled. Giant Skeleton will do that fine.
And Faust here will be happy seeing that fireball played on defense by Mo here, as it allows him to stack up these units, although this ability from Monk will be very strong here.
And a Mother Witch gets a taste of her own medicine here and turned right back into a pig. I feel like we just saw the end of a fable. And now the big push coming in. Monk in front. No ability available. Ram Rider connects full speed anyway.
Yeah, Mo opting to switch lanes here, showing that he wants to go in the same lane as him, build up his troops, build up his big pushes that won't be stopped by Faust.
And just nothing for these magic archers on the side of Faust, and that's been a real problem. You see how long these magic archers are staying on the board. We'll see how much Mo continues to abuse those as time goes on.
Yeah, definitely, I agree with you there, Rich. It's going to be something that Mo needs to just keep playing in the back. You won't have any counters to it. It's something that controls a lane, it blocks a lane, it stops Faust from playing in that lane.
And you saw trying to get hoping that Flying Machine would hit with the arrows to get it off, doesn't happen. And now again, this 4 Elixir stays on the board just about forever. 22 seconds and a minute remaining, and the lead pretty heavily for Mohamed Light.
Yeah, and another thing here from Faust is without those zappies, he's got no resets for the Ram Rider too. Inferno Dragon, yes, but also the Ram Rider. That Ram Rider with no zappies in it should always get a hit. And when it comes down to lower HP situations, Mo's able to do a Ram Rider at the bridge a lot more liberally if a zappies aren't in cycle.
Ram Rider down behind, and look at this, just everything again, once again in front of this Magic Archer. And Ram Rider's going to get body blocked a little bit here. Can the Zappies do the work? Fisherman does get business, but look at that. Magic Archer lines up, and everyone's like, hey, is this the day the SK gets the win? Is this the day that Mohamed Light goes down? Does not look like it's going to be the case, folks. Magic Archer goes 1, Magic Archer goes 2, Magic Archer goes 3 times.
Wow, the geography from that Magic Archer was absolutely great there.
I prefer the geology, personally.
There's so many words.
And there you go. Game number 2 in the books. 2 of 4 on the day. It went all the way to the final game, a really deep one. But Puigins does come out on top. Next up will be Queso versus Hype Boys. Let's take a look, though, at the leaderboard halfway through our day. Puigins, 5 wins in 5 games. Will definitely be going through to the next round. And currently looking like they are unstoppable, as everybody expected earlier today. Tribe Gaming losing. They will stay there in that number 2 spot. We will see SK CALALAS in our final matchup of the day against CHIVAS Esports. Is that right? Yes, against CHIVAS Esports. Strangers took a win that now, with the loss from SK Gaming, puts Strangers in a really good spot. Strangers 3 wins. If Hype Boys loses today, Strangers guarantees a spot in our top 6 and is guaranteed to move on to our playoffs later in April. But the big question now is this Team Queso versus Hype Boys matchup. Hype Boys, can they win and put themselves in contention for that number 6, number 5 type of spot? Or are they going to be in even more trouble? SK Gaming falling to 0-5 on this one. They need some strangeness to happen here. I'm not even sure mathematically if SK can go through. They might be out for good from those top 6. I have to see what matchups still remain and if they could win 2 in a row and hop over 2 of the other teams. It looks fairly unlikely though. So it's going to be a difficult one for them. But again, next up, Queso versus Hype Boys, and then Chivas versus CALALAS to wrap things up. Man, SB, it seems as though the Mo train just refuses to stop.
No, that's the thing about the Mo train.
Yeah. What do we do? Do we just like hold events in the middle, like in the middle when it's like 4 a.m. in Egypt, so he's exhausted? How do we stop him?
I think we've got to. I think because obviously Mo's mom has a big impact on him, you know, with studying and stuff like that. Maybe we've got to find when his exams are. When are the exams in Egypt? Let's get tournaments on during that time.
And yeah, that's a very, very good point there. When are the exams? Can we get them done? Can we get that happening? I see a request here for the highest win rate in the league so far. I don't have win rate information.
I actually
available.
do.
Oh, you do? Where do you have that?
Yeah, it's on Liquipedia.
Oh.
So yeah, I'll try and pull that up for you. It might not be updated for today, but I'll try and... I saw EGW was tweeting it before because I think he's having some good success. So
Sure.
It might be on his Twitter.
So we'll go ahead and try to figure that out. Taking a look at the lineups, the rosters for these two teams.
Yeah.
And it's going to be, again, Queso versus...
Just sent you an image on Discord. I think that might be from day 4 onwards.
Let me go ahead and bring
at that point, after yesterday, Mo was 11-2, so I think he's even going to be better win rate now.
Yeah, as of yesterday, Mohamed Light was our win rate leader at 85%. Sub was at 78, and EGW just under 70%. Those were our top 3 leaders in wins. 11 wins for Mo, EGW with 11 wins, Surgical Goblin also with 11 wins, and he'll be in our next match here in just a moment, and 11 wins for Sandbox as well. And yeah, that's going to be coming up very soon. Again, by the way, folks, I see we're at 99,488, almost to 99.5, which means we're so close to 100,000 subscribers. So thanks to everyone who has subscribed. If you haven't yet, guess what? We're back tomorrow and Sunday with more of this competition. So if you don't want to miss it, subscribe, turn on notifications, make sure you're back for all of this. And it is definitely fun. Aw, we lost one. Well, we'll get some more back. It's fun to see everyone here and enjoy this really great competition together. I don't know when the Liquipedia person will update that win rate stuff, but certainly, I guess the big story right now is that Surgical Goblin at 65% win rate and part of this Queso Cup roster. We'll see if he can add to that one right now with our first game here as Surgical Goblin jumps in with his teammates of Javi 14, Bale, and Kodigo to take on the Hype Boys roster of Coco, Stefan, Line, a.k.a. Quinoa, Blizzard, and Geralt.
Yeah, it's great to see Surgical Goblin back in competition. I think he's always got that grind in him, you know. As soon as he wanted to come back, he reached such a high level so fast just because he was practicing so much. And I think he also just brings an aura, that the way that Mo brings an aura, Surgical Goblin has an aura in him to where he's so conditioned to comp, conditioned to winning, that when you play him, it just feels different.
He certainly is in good rhythm, and people asking about the Surgical Goblin comeback. He made it to the group stage of our first monthly qualifier, went 4-2 and just missed out on tiebreakers. I expect to see more solid stuff from Surgical Goblin this year, especially considering how well he's been playing in this competition.
Yeah, even last year he was close to making Worlds through that last chance qualifier too. How great would it have been to see him at Worlds last year and even this year coming forward.
Yeah, and that's what people forget is he was so close, and it's amazing to have taken so much time off from the game, and to be back in real contention for being a potential world finalist, not just last year, but this year maybe as well.
And refreshing to see here, Coco playing Minor Wallbreak is the xAlee deck. It's a deck that he's very strong with on ladder, but it's normally not that good in comp, but because he's good with it on ladder, he's able to play it, and we'll see how much success he has with it against this E-Giant from Surgical Goblin.
And I've mentioned this a bunch in the last few days, but Andrew and I call this the warm-up deck, because this was the deck that everyone was playing. This very close to this deck was the deck everyone was playing at CRL World Finals as they were getting warmed up for their matches. And Lucas explained it was just because it makes you use so many different of your basic micro skills. It just gets you in the zone.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that too. It's one of those decks that you've got to have lots of perfect placements, lots of little things that make you start thinking, get your brain active, and get you... Oh, and what a log there from Coco, predicting the Fire Spirit. If it wasn't for that log, that would have been a push that would have just died straight away, and Surgical Goblin would have been in the lead with this E-Giant coming down on his tower.
And again, Magic Archer just hanging out, setting up a campfire, tying its food up in a tree so a bear won't get it, because it'll be camping out for a while on the board. And there you go. Pulls duty both defensively and offensively. Surgical Goblin in trouble as we go into sudden death.
This is going to be hard for Coco to stop though. Surge using his tower as an elixir resource on the left there, letting him use those wall breakers as a way of him getting an elixir advantage to formulate this push. But another clean defense here. But that E-Giant coming down without a lightning in hand though. If he can get back to a bomb tower, this just amounts to nothing.
And lightning this time does come in and get both the bomb tower and the Magic Archer. NATO just to get that bomb tower death damage there. Log to clean up all of that, but gonna end up a little low on elixir here, and that cage will clean up. This sets up Surgical Goblin, it feels like, SB for a really good opportunity as we get into our final 90.
Yeah, lots of these pushes are going to start coming down from Surge. It's just a matter of, does Coco defend all of these E-Giants whilst getting enough minor damage in time. See how he's cycling the wall breakers, trying to get Surgical Goblin out of cycle with the Goblin Cage, with the Barb Barrel, but he's got so many defenses that when he's doing it in the same lane, it's just building for his counterattack. A great lightning there, getting both the Magic Archer and the building, allowing the E-Giant to push on towards the tower.
And that Golden Knight, he's going to hit the ability button as fast as he can. Does not go all the way to tower. Here we go. Triple Elixir. 800 HP on that right-hand tower. Remember, no big spell for Coco to try to spell cycle that one out. So mostly minors, maybe a log or two. And the damage on the left-hand lane becoming a factor that Surge has to take into account.
And these Inferno Dragons are going to be hard for Coco to deal with. If he gets a good Nado off, a good Golden Knight, this could be the end for Coco, but so far a perfect defense. It all just gets melted, and also those wall breakers he's going to have to respond to. He may do a miner here as well. Tanks for that, and now the miner on tower with a Nado, with a log. It's just going to be all cleaned up from Coco here. A pretty textbook game here, and nice to see as well, using the, as you say, the warm-up deck to get a win against Surgical Goblin.
Coco coming out, and again, this is a team that has not yet picked up a win. They would love to do it here. Queso has picked up wins, but has also lost a few despite valiant efforts on behalf of the 2019 World Champion with Team Liquid. And I believe, did I already miss it there, or is it coming up next? Let's see. Let me take this back here, because I believe I picked up the Fire Spirit play, the log prediction on the Fire Spirit. I think it's going to be the next play here. Javi 14 up next, but let's dig in on this one, because I think this is that Fire Spirit prediction that you talked about, and this was what Coco was doing. You said textbook, and that really is what it was. It was completely precision play, done exactly how you're supposed to do it from Coco the entire way through.
Yeah, and it changes the mentality of the game. It puts Coco in a leading position where he's allowed to take a bit more damage, lose a bit more damage, and then Surge has to be ultra conservative on his defenses. He can't play an E-Giant in the back and tank one wall breaker because his tower is so much more lower HP that he's not able to use that right tower as a resource for the elixir and able to build up that push.
And there's that log to the Fire Spirit. Let's go ahead and jump into game number 2. Javi 14 on the board here against Coco.
Javi, another player like Surge coming back After having so much success back in the teams days, he wants a bit of the singles action, grinding as well, playing a lot of ladder, and getting back up there. So it's great to see. I think that's the same with a lot of these Team Queso players. You know, ex-players who still have the macro ability in them. They're just refining the micros, and they've got the experience, the know-how of tournaments that really helps them get back into it.
And this is interesting. Coco going with a giant skeleton deck, and those of you who remember CRL West might remember that Javi 14 was pretty darn good back in CRL West. Had phenomenal performances for Fnatic and, of course, for SK Gaming. But if there was one card that gave him fits, it was the giant skeleton. Almost inexplicably, giant skeletons would connect onto his princess tower for death damage often, to the point where we started talking about it. And so you see here Coco with a giant skeleton pigs deck. Doesn't get the giant skeleton bomb, but gets a ton of damage from the Royal Hogs.
Yeah, and this deck seems like another good counter to this Mega Knight deck, although this push is very strong here for Javi 14. I don't know if he'll be able to defend this Coco. A lot of damage, but also, I think it just evens it up overall. It seems like the advantage here is for Coco. He's going to have to use these fly machines, these zappies. He can stack them all in one lane, knowing that Javi doesn't have a big spell here, but also Javi will always have that Mega Knight in cycle after that first mistake of not having the Mega Knight for the pigs, so it's going to be hard for him to get damage. I think it's just going to be a case of stacking giant skeletons, stacking fly machines, and hopefully overwhelming that way.
And first time chatter over on Twitch asking the question, does Elixir Leaked have any negative effects? I'm new to Clash Royale. Well, it depends on what you mean by negative effects. Elixir Leaked is Elixir that you didn't end up using. Sometimes you don't use Elixir for a purposeful reason. Start maybe at the beginning of the game, both players waiting to see who moves first. Sometimes you decide to let a little bit of Elixir go so that the timing of a play in response to something your opponent played works perfectly, as opposed to in-ideal timing or unideal timing to not waste Elixir. And then sometimes you just freeze and don't play anything for a moment, and you do waste Elixir. So Elixir Leaked isn't inherently bad, isn't inherently good. It depends on why you leaked it.
I think that was a perfect explanation from you there, Rich. You should look at getting into Clash Royale coaching, definitely.
I think I will stick with the talking as the best thing, and I'll leave the coaching to the people who love spreadsheets.
I'm not sure that's a prerequisite for coaching in Clash Royale, but yeah, definitely.
And pigs on the left-hand side for Coco just wreaking havoc. Flying Machine gets away, and looks like he's in pretty good shape here. Of course, that bottom right-hand tower in trouble. Miner adding a little bit more damage.
And we see a 3-1 pig split here from Coco as well to win the game. That would just great, wouldn't it? I think Coco in no real stress here from losing. He just gets to keep playing the same lane, hoping for a Royal Hog hit here and there. And with paired with the arrows, he can slowly take the game.
And Javi does get the Fly Machine off the board. With that Mega Knight being pulled, Miner here is going to be kind of alone for a second. Bird goes back up high. That Miner doing a lot of damage on that right-hand lane. Will it be enough? 331.
No arrows. Wow.
Unbelievable. Javi 14 stealing victory from the jaws of defeat. And everyone here about 90 seconds ago was writing off Javi, writing off Queso, and instead he fires right back and takes control. Let's take a look at those final moments. What did it for him, SB?
I think it was just over-aggressive from Coco. You know, he had the lead. He had the situation under control. He could even have just cycled arrows without even using those Royal Hogs. But instead, he overextended. I think the Fisherman on the Mega Knight could have been pulled to the King Tower instead, getting an activation. But instead, he just spent too much in the wrong situations. And eventually, it just led to him getting overwhelmed on the side that you wouldn't even expect him to lose the tower on.
And PP Monto asking, who is the co-caster? The co-caster is longtime CRL pro from CRL Asia, SB. Now currently 17th on our 2023 CRL rankings. And hoping to at least bump himself up a couple more spots to qualify for World Finals.
I've got to remember about that tattoo that I'm getting right, so
Yes.
we need to get those rankings up.
Yeah, there's nothing we want less than a tattoo with triple digits, or God forbid, quadruple.
It'll cost even more as well. The more ink, it's double pain.
And nice timing on the monk ability there, just to get the musketeer out of everything, and then potentially try to double up on it. Instead, with the elixir being low, Javi's going to go ahead and just take the chance to reset rather than do anything else.
Yeah, monk going to be key here for Javi. When it comes in front of this RG, all of Quinoa's counters to the RG, musketeer, mortar, all going to be reflected by that monk. So one big push could be very difficult to deal with.
And that monk taking 3 hits onto that left-hand tower, too. So the monk getting defensive and offensive turns in here. And, of course, that's what you love the most, is when a card can, in the same expenditure, give you value on both sides of the board.
Ooh, and a lot of damage taken there from Quinoa. I think that wasn't probably the best play in mind. Usually you don't even really mind too much about a King Tower activation in RG, and instead he just took a lot of Firecracker hits to the tower. But yeah, like you say, Rich, Monk is actually very good offensively. That third hit does so much damage that people don't really realize. It's like having a Lumberjack on your tower.
And Monk's going to be tanking for the Fisherman on the right-hand side, too. Not to mention for the bird on the left, just a little bit. Does not quite get the connection for Javi, but still, damage in. And now with the Electro Spear, easy control here of this Hog Rider, King Tower activated. And at this point, it's going to force Quinoa to spend a little bit more with these Hog Riders unless he's out cycling that Fisherman, because Javi can completely counter the Hog Rider with a well-timed, well-placed Fish Boy as time goes on.
Yeah, I think slowly but surely it's going to be Javi stacking up in this one lane. Unless Quinoa is able to do some great opposite lane pressure, it's just going to be RG after RG and slowly one hit after another. Even with this reflective damage too from this monk, it's going to be slowly chipping him away. The Firecracker too, he's not got the perfect response to it. It's just going to be not looking good going forward.
And here we go, Firecracker in.
Great log here.
Brilliant log. RG's going to should get a second one, and it does. 8:16 remaining. And it continues to flow towards Javi after it looked like he was dead in the water. Suddenly it looks like he could get 2 in a row.
Monk going to come down here in front. But that Hog will get good damage. He's not got the best counters for it. And those aggressive Goblins are going to DPS that RG very quickly. A great play there from Line, and suddenly he's back in the lead.
2 shots. 2 big shots for the Hog Rider, and now Javi has to be much more circumspect with those Fisherman plays. 4:16 and log EQ. That might be sufficient. Just play some defense against these RGs and try to cycle if we can get fast enough in a triple elixir. We'll see the Lightning. Big play here. Hog behind. And that Hog's going to get the shot. That Hog's going to get there. Wow.
Yeah. Although it looks so in control of Javi, he doesn't actually have the best Hog counters with no Fisherman. Even with a Mighty Miner at the bridge and then a Hog Rider behind it, the Fisherman's just too finicky to play the perfect defense for the Hog. Quinoa playing it well, addressing when the RG is going to be played and immediately hogging at the bridge, getting those shots in when Javi didn't have the best counters for it.
And let's take a look at that one more time, and you can already see that this is after the momentum had already shifted over towards Line. And yeah, early on, great, but as we were saying at the top of the show, or top of this game, it would be putting stuff around the Hog to distract the Fisherman, and you see Mighty Miner down, Fisherman not even in cycle, and that's just an easy finish there. So there you go. Line, a.k.a. Quinoa. Can we just decide? Maybe just put line / Quinoa, line of Quinoa. That's nice.
Yeah.
Here from Nate. I don't mind that one. Dr. Suel saying, is this the second match? No, this is the third match of the day. We are in the midst of our third match, Queso versus Hype Boys. After this, Chivas versus SK Shock CALALAS. Here we go. Line with set point for Hype Boys.
This is Bale here. Wallbreaker's coming down from Bale. Pretty standard stuff for comp against Goblins. Looking like RG versus Mana Wallbreakers here. Will it be Mega Knight? Will it be Bomb Tower? Mighty Miner? Who knows? Looking like Mega Knight here for Bale.
And Bale, I don't know if he's casting today. He was casting yesterday. So I wonder, I think yesterday, he did play yesterday. So wonder if he just kind of takes a break from casting and decides to become a player for a minute, still on his own channel. I have not been watching the Spanish broadcasts, but, you know, I've always wondered what would happen if you had a player who was, you know, what if Juicy J decides to is able to qualify for World Finals, for example, this year, but he's still part of, does he not be part of the casting team? Does he cast and then go, you know, run down there and play his match real quick and then come back?
Maybe he could like shoutcast his own match. He could be mic'd up mid-game, just going through all of his plays. Could talk about his own elixir. Could work.
And the missed kite on the Phoenix here. Archers do come out behind it.
Yeah, it seems like until double, we're going to see a lot of just passive plays here from both players. I think the Fisherman's going to be very strong here for Quinoa of line of Quinoa, one of the two. Going into it, it's going to be able to pull those Mega Knights, pull those Princes, and paired with a Monk and a Phoenix on top of that Fisherman, it'll be pulling it to its death.
And just slightly better placement by line than by Bale. Bale going, hoping the Fisherman would be one tile to the right and trying to get the placement that the Fisherman would walk to the Miner rather than pull the Miner. Instead, it does pull.
Nice log here coming down from Quinoa. He's had no stresses really so far in the defensive department. Then neither's Bale. Finally, as we see the first push here, can he overwhelm? This is going to be quite a hard defense for Quinoa. He seems to be quite stretch thin. But if he can pull it off by pulling everything to the center, he may have a counter-attack coming away now.
Brilliant Goblins there to defend the E-Wiz, but even after all of that, Miner gets down, and these wall breakers making a run through, forcing the fireball out, and that does suddenly and finally lead the elixir over towards the side of Bale, and the momentum beginning to shift towards Team Queso.
Quinoa surviving there. If you can get a log down here, or a counter to these wall breakers. Instead, he just decides to tank that. And it looks like he realizes that to change the momentum, he's got to build up a big push. He can't just keep on defending for the whole time, or else he'll just lose the battle of attrition.
Bale sets up Mega Knight in the back. Already committed to this line. This lane is line.
Bale definitely going to take a lot of damage here. It's just whether Quinoa will be able to defend the counter attack. That Fisherman though, great pulling in the Mega Knight, already killing one of the troops that would be on the counter. Although even elixir though, and a lot more on the board for Bale. Can he make use of this?
Quinoa has been phenomenal with protecting the Fisherman and E-Wiz with those Goblins in the middle. At some point, you got to wonder if Bale's going to try to predict with those arrows and disrupt that middle game defensive placement.
Yep, and going into triple now, Quinoa will be a lot more aggressive with these RGs. He'll be able to defend a lot easier, and once he gets those RGs down, Bale won't be able to defend them continually. It will just get one shot at a time, and just eventually lead to him losing. And good Fisherman there, prediction. It just stops the Mega Knight from coming down.
I was going to say, you see Bale attempting that arrows prediction right there, but Quinoa one step ahead, varying up his defense as we reach triple, knowing those arrows were more viable. So perfect situation for him. RG will connect. GG, well played. Set number one goes for Hype Boys, and they now have a real chance at completely turning this tournament around.
Yeah, definitely needing to happen for Hype Boys if they want to have a chance at making it to the playoffs. Quinoa has some great players there. He definitely needed to make it to triple to win that match, and he defended pretty solidly, I'd say, for the most of the game to get him to triple to where it's pretty plain sailing from then on out.
And let's see, maybe Hype Boys can get their first win, says Visweswar. I'm sure I just butchered that, but there you go. Yeah, no, definitely a possibility here. So now the question, let's go take a look at the lineups for Queso, because they did come out here, Surgical Goblin, Javi, and Bale. Kodigo, I do think he's, I don't know if he's active today. I do think he is, though. If there's, do you send out the same 3 again, maybe in a different order here, SB, or do you get Kodigo in the mix?
I think you bring Cody in. He's such a strong player. He's playing so much because he's streaming, but then people underestimate how good he actually is. He's online right now, so I definitely think he gets put into the lineup. Even as an anchor, I think he's probably the strongest player. Bar Surge, I think that's a debate, but yeah, definitely get him in.
You heard it here first, folks. Get him in. And speaking of get him in, get your subs in right now. Let's see. Does that tick over? Oh, it does. 99,500 subscribers. We are not done yet with today, folks. We have the rest of this match and one more match afterwards. And I know that there's quite a few of you watching here on YouTube. Subscribe. Come back tomorrow. Come back on Sunday. We'll be doing this a whole bunch. And then, of course, next week, GKR and more stuff after that. So if you want to, love to have you here. It's an easy way to support the stream. If you don't want to do that, we are now at 437 likes on this stream. More likes for the stream do help amplify it and get more people who may not have seen Clash Royale esports before a chance to come and see Clash Royale esports and continue to grow this community and allow us to do more cool, awesome things like this. So if you can, if your click is working and you want to go ahead and click, love the click. There you go, Mr. 509 510. I appreciate y'all giving the support there. Let's see our lineups for set number 2. And SB, you were exactly right. Kodigo does come in. It's Kodigo, Bale, Javi. So Surgical Goblin taking a seat here in that set up against Coco, Line, and Geralt. Let's go ahead, jump right into it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Coco plays another comfort deck here that's slightly not meta for the comp scene. An aggressive drill here from Cody straight off. Would make me think that he's not playing the NATO version. He's probably playing the Musketeer Mighty Miner version. But then we do see the Magic Archer coming down. I'm not too sure about that aggressive drill play. Normally you want to wait till double for that, which has kind of been why he took so much damage early on.
You know, sometimes you're just sitting there going, hey, maybe he doesn't have one of his good drill counters in hand and I can get some free damage early on. But as you said, it's a lot of elixir to spend on a hope, right? There's some cards where, you know, you hog first play, you don't really lose that much, but it feels like drill just doesn't quite get the same payoff, doesn't have the same potential payoff that another win condition first play might have.
Yeah, especially with this version when you're looking to get most of your damage with those Nados, with those Golden Knights and Magic Archers and double elixir. When you see like a Drill Wallbreaker's deck, yes, you could kind of have some merit in going those first plays because you've got the cheap defenses, but against this Miner Mortar deck, you know that you're always going to win if you play safe till double. So if Cody does that from now on out, he'll still be good, but hopefully he doesn't go with too many more aggressive plays in single elixir, where he has a chance to lose at least.
And Mortar plus Poison will be all right here, but the E-Wiz behind the Giant Skeleton going to force just a little bit more thoughts out of Coco as time goes on.
And those archers played straight into the death of the Golden Knight here. With no Mighty Miner, he's going to have to expend those Goblins. So that's why he goes with the Drill, because those Goblins are going to come down, and hopefully he can get maybe a Magic Archer Nado off here because of it. A good high Mortar there, just countering any chance of a Nado coming down. Kanakot on Mortar there. Nice play from Cody. He should be safe after this defense.
20-30 left-hand tower. So far, very little taken by Coco, as the log cycle does just a little bit more chip damage.
And this is where it slowly turns in the favour of Kodigo, with these Golden Knights coming down. If he gets a nice Nado and a Golden Knight connection, that's all it takes to change the tides of this matchup.
And
great defenses here from Coco, consistently dealing with all of this push.
Denying these Golden Knights from being impactful as well, which is absolutely massive. And continuing to get poisons. These poisons, just to get a little bit of chip, slow down the push, take some of the stuff out from behind these Giant Skeletons. Certainly doing their job so far, but now this is the danger you talked about. A lot out here.
Yeah, looks very tough for him to deal with, but as we've seen time and time again, he's dealt with it. And again, another dash that doesn't pay off for Cody.
Kodigo's dashes have been a little suspect, I have to say. You know, you've seen a couple where it seems like you either wanted to go earlier or later, and he's just doing them almost at the, you know, you look at that and you go, there's a time where there's almost no benefit from taking it at those moments.
Yeah, you either hold off hoping that they just are scared of the Golden Knight dash, they don't make the plays, or you go straight away, clearing all the troops for that giant skeleton to get to tower.
Nice ability there from Coco just to get a little more cleanup.
There
and there's
go.
that Golden Knight dash that Kodigo's been looking for.
Yeah, Coco can play perfectly this whole time like we saw, but all it takes is one dash. It's going to be a case of cycling these poisons and getting more perfect defenses. If he can get that Mighty Miner down, he'll be able to do more offensive miners in these situations that stop him from getting these big pushes built up like he is now.
Magic Archer not getting the lineup on that one. Poison working deep. That's going to get the left-hand tower down to under 1,000, now down under 900 HP, under 800 as the miner comes in as well. Coco knows that this is the key moment here. Wants to finish this one off and start this set off right. Golden Knight does not connect. That's great news for Coco, bad news for Kodigo. And the NATO here does help get it close, but with 15 seconds left, will that be sufficient? Miner in. And
Wow,
that's going to be Miner
just
plus
perfect
long.
defenses. Wow. Does the ability pay off? Oh, I've got to say, although Cody could have done a lot better abilities, I'm surprised that not more Golden Knights had hit the tower. That seemed like a correctly nerfed Golden Knight going forward.
That might be the best way to put it, right? Is that Golden Knight felt like the nerfed Golden Knight. And it was not able to get
That's
out.
what we want to see.
Yeah.
We want to see, plays where it has to be a nice NATO and a perfectly timed to get on tower. But yeah, definitely. That was great play from Coco, because that's a matchup that he shouldn't be winning.
Let's see. Badger State asking, hello, Richard. Well, I mean, quite formal of you. Hello, Badger State. Have you posted your thoughts on Draft Ladder? I asked SB about it earlier, and he and I kind of share the same opinion of I'm gonna wait and see. Let's see what it's like. There are positives, there are negatives, but people have been asking for something to shake up the game for a long time, and this definitely does it. So we'll see what it's like as we go into our next season. But for now, we have game number 2 of this set. Bale now coming out for Team Queso.
Currently 1-0 up as well in this King of the Hill to Hype Boys. On the way to the first win, unless something happens here from one of the remaining Queso players.
Well, it's been the story of Hype Boys to go up and then lose a lot in this competition. So we'll see if they're able to right that ship here.
Coco possibly repeating here. Going up against, looks like a bridge spam here from Bale, which is nice to see. I think bridge spam's severely underrated in this meta. It's very strong, and it beats all of these minor decks, I think.
And
not an optimal fireball from Bale. He has to play it, but he won't want him to be continually doing fireballs on goblins on defense.
And Jack Anglis asking, can you all see my messages? No, we cannot. Very sorry for that.
You might need to send some more for us to be able to see them, I think.
Rip your messages.
Nice ability here. See how the Magic Archer is in front though, so it first hits the Magic Archer and then reflects the ability. So that placement might need to change with Bale if he wants to get an ability to counter the log against the Magic Archer next time.
So about 500 HP lead for Bale as we get close to double elixir time. And
Bale's definitely going to be happy in double elixir, I think, going forward. He'll be able to formulate the bigger pushes with the monk in front, getting all the things down, and then pressing the Realm Rider behind once all the troops have been cleared up. But like we saw last game, if Coco can keep doing these perfect defenses, he's just going to control this game out.
Here's the big question for you. Is Lumberjack back?
Ooh. I think it's too situational. I think there's too many better cards. I've always been a huge fan of Lumberjack. I think it's so versatile. I think it's slightly back because when you play that lumberjack and say if you use a bat normally to defend a lumberjack, they're going to get counters, so then the ram rider can come in behind without having a counter. But I think there's just too many other strong cards at the minute for it to be viable. I think if there's a nerf to some of the more prominent cards like Monk and Mighty Miner, it might have a chance. If we saw a champion version of the lumberjack, I think it could be very strong. Maybe with an ability that could press, maybe turning the rage on and off or something, that could be a cool thing. But I think just champions are too strong right now to where they're always the optimal card to play.
And that is a really interesting thought, is reworking some cards into being champions. Is that even, like, that almost seems wild.
Yeah, it seems like it'd just be quite fresh as well, because they've already got these things, and then if you add an ability to it, it could have like a smaller version of itself or something like that.
Is that what saves Wizard from low ladder hell? Is that it gets reworked into being the champion Wizard?
Yeah, and then it provides like an executioner shot or something like that, or it has its own nado, it can nado troops into itself. That'd be so toxic though, to be honest.
Kind of goes like Super Wizard from Clash of Clans, where maybe it chains.
Yeah, that'd be great. It's like an Electro Dragon combined with Wizard.
So lead still here for Coco. Bale trying to find a way to meaningfully break through, and this might be the opportunity. And the Monk ability reflects back onto that Mortar. Absolutely huge. Mortar going to go down. Fireball in. Ram Rider gets stunned for a half second and cannot connect.
An aggressive magic watch here from Bale as well, not going to connect. A great fireball from it with the Ram Rider, though, able to take out the Musketeer. It's going to all come down to some of these abilities and whether the bridge battles turn in favour of Bale or Coco in these following 30 seconds.
Poison in. Going to be under 900 HP, ticking down very close to 800. 772 to 1252. Ram Rider trying to get in. The Mortar does go down, but the Rage not going to matter. Ice Spirit Goblin work from Coco is on point.
Goblin on tower.
Is there any way
Bible
through?
won't do enough, I don't think. No. Another textbook game from Coco, honestly. There's some very perfect defenses. He's making it seem a lot easier than it actually is to keep on getting these really nice defenses. I know he's a very strong mortar player, so this is just reinforcing that.
GG, well played, and let's go take a look at some of the chat here as we wait for our next game. I see some people say some deck restrictions would be nice if it keeps in the same decks. Yeah, I wish that there was, in King of the Hill, at least like 1 or 2 bans for each team. I think would make King of the Hill more interesting. You could also play King of the Hill in Royale Masters style duel mode, where you lose cards after you win with them, right? That's another option, but I do prefer some sort of deck restrictions. Your thoughts, SB? Do you just play King of the Hill straight up like this, or do you like, would you like to kind of coordinate in a little bit more?
I think a ban from each team is quite simple, and it can formulate strategy. Definitely, you know, if you come in with a ban card and you only get told 15 minutes before, you can make decks that have a surprise factor without that card in that you've been practicing all week. It just adds an extra element, and especially when we're seeing archers in every deck and monk in so many decks, mighty man in so many decks, it can create a different meta within a meta that just keeps the game fresh.
Sure. Sounds like Barbarian King with the toggleable rage. Yeah, I enjoyed King of the Hill. I like King of the Hill with bans because you try to figure out, are you banning for a specific player on their team? Are you trying to use a ban that applies to a lot of the players' deck pools? Are you banning for the deck pool that you want to run? A lot of different possibilities. And another note, as people are asking here a lot about how the Mega Draft will work. It's going to be for 1 season for Path of Legends, and all cards will be capped at level 11. So you'd have to have cards up to level 11, but cards will be capped at level 11, so even up at the top of Path of Legends, it'll be level 11 all the way through. And then on top of that, you do have to have cards unlocked. So any cards that you don't have unlocked will be grayed out.
Loon versus E-Giant here from Coco. Match point for Hype Boys. Can they pull it through and get their first win on the board?
the first of 3 consecutive match points. So if Hype Boys can't get it done here, that's going to be a real open a lot of questions about this team moving forward.
Going to be a tough one for Kodigo here. He's going to hopefully just have to keep defending and possibly get some loon death damage. He's not going to be able to loon if Javi has a cannon and the nado in hand. He's not going to be able to do it both at the same time because that's just a free king tower activation. Javi goes with an aggressive E-Giant in the back, just opts to take one hit and then nado it to king tower if he gets the timing off right, which he does. But unfortunately, I don't think he's going to have enough to pair this with a lightning and a golden knight, which is the push that you want to be creating.
So maybe expect some archers. There you go. And does Miner come out next just because the nado's out of cycle? Of course, he doesn't want to go to any nadoable spots because the king tower is already activated, so it's a 50-50 proposition there with that right-hand tower down nice and low. Arrows cleans up the left-hand side, and Javi switches lanes into his weak tower.
An aggressive lightning there, just opting to get rid of the Phoenix. Not going for tower damage here, just stopping the counter-attack.
And this time, it's Miner tanking for Loon, so it almost feels like the sequencing there was a half step up. But this balloon going to force out a nado. And how important is that for Coco here, because of that Golden Knight and the Iwas, of course, to keep that nado being used on defense rather than on offense?
Yeah, it's very big. A lot of players here would just sit back as Coco and just keep on defending, but you've got to be aggressive so it allows you to actually get a defense off, because even if you're even Elixir, the Golden Knight paired with the nado just too much value, so you've got to push into these pushes just so they utilize some of their offensive cards on defense.
Arrows for the bomber. Golden Knight makes that a non-issue, and now Miner in once more, tanking for this balloon.
And a nice Miner placement there as well, out of range of the cannon.
So continuing, we're now 90 seconds left, 90 and change. Coco's got a solid lead here and has not taken any damage yet.
Yeah, I think Javi's got to acknowledge this and start trying to switch something up. I couldn't say what it is, maybe an E-Giant in the opposite lane and just try and get away with a Phoenix on defense, but it's not looking good for him. Coco lane blocking quite well, knowing that he just needs to place a giant skeleton in front of all these pushes. He doesn't always have to use the bomb tower. He can save that bomb tower for a second E-Giant if Javi starts trying to cycle too. With these 2 giant skeletons, it's just going to block everything, and he won't be able to formulate a push if it just keep on death damage applying to all these troops.
And now, again, the balloon comes down, and Cannon's not going to pull it, so needs the nado here. Snowball makes some room. Miner gets on tower. High Cannon to control, but Coco doing a great job of forcing Javi to spend Elixir on defense rather than on offense. 40 seconds left, and here comes the push.
Yeah, this is now or never for Javi. He's hoping to get some connection in some way or another. But these giant skeletons are just really making that hard for him. And that death damage just clears up everything, and it doesn't even need to use another giant skeleton on this push here to defend it.
And Javi calling good game. Cannot break through at all. Coco, give him the MVP on the day for Hype Boys. Nice stuff early on.
4-1 today from Coco. Some great plays. And some solid gameplay. It's not just matchup luck. He's had some hard matchups to get through here, and he's outplayed them.
King of the Hill sweep. Hype Boys not only finally get in the winners column, but more importantly, they take it against a team that's near the bottom of the table and open up a real opportunity for themselves to leapfrog up into that top 6 and have a shot at making our playoffs.
And into the final match of the day here, Chivas versus the other CAL team featuring Ruben. Another very strong team, 2 very strong teams, and it'd be nice to see some more Anaban gameplay today. I'm really seeing him in comp because he plays something different, a bit similar to EGW here.
For Chivas Esports, it will be Anaban, Diego, Ardentoas, Hasiel, and Pompeyo. We'll see what combinations they bring out today, and of course, they are aware of what time the matches start today, so we won't be having any delays like we had the other day. And then CALALAS with Ruben, Sub, Vitor, Adriel, and Pedro. Let's look at what's at stake here as we jump into a look at our leaderboards. And you can see with that win, Hype Boys, now because I believe of head-to-head being the first tiebreaker, that's interesting. I need to confirm in the rulebook whether Hype Boys should be above Queso or Queso should be above Hype Boys, but it might be that the first tiebreaker is head-to-head here. I'm going to go ahead and try to confirm that in just a moment.
On the rulebook right now. I'll try and see if I can pull it up
direct
quickly.
confrontation. So even though Hype Boys has a worse plus-minus set differential, because they have the head-to-head win, they are now above Team Queso in the standings. So a super important win for Hype Boys, now putting the pressure on Team Queso. Of course, 2 matches left to play for both of those squads, so a lot left on the board. But Hype Boys now find themselves in control of their own fate. If they win tomorrow and they win Sunday, they are in and they can edge Queso out. But if they lose either of those matches and Queso can come back and win, then suddenly things get very, very interesting. And then we talk about our final match of the day of CALALAS versus CHIVAS Esports. Shock is now, I believe, is very close with that 3 wins. I think just like Strangers, they may have now clinched. Did Shock beat Queso? I need to go back and look at some of those records here. Maybe you can tell me if Shock ended up beating Queso, who would be their big concern. CHIVAS Esports, with only 2 wins, Queso could win out and go above them. So CHIVAS Esports really needs the win here against CALALAS in order to feel comfortable going into our final couple of days.
Yeah, and just looking at the matchups now, Shock play Queso tomorrow by the looks of it, so that could be a very big matchup.
Yeah, that's a big one, especially if CHIVAS gets the win. That ends up being a big matchup. So lots left to be decided. Just because SK is out and just because PUIGINS and Tribe are definitely in does not mean that we are all done here, folks. Tomorrow and Sunday, a lot will be on the line for these teams. Not to mention, also, when we get into tomorrow and Sunday, teams that are already in are not just going to be playing to try to get themselves, they're not playing for wins, but they're going to be playing to figure out the seeding, who plays whom. Because some of those matches, especially if you're in first and second places get a first round bye in our bracket stage. So that's going to be pretty big as well. So we'll see. Lots left to be decided here, folks. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and get into our final match of the day, and they'll get that updated here in just 1 second. There you go. Final match of the day. CHIVAS Esports versus CALALAS, DiegoB and Adriel kicking things off.
Adriel looking like Mega Knight, Minor Ball Breakers. He's another player who's actually played this a lot before it was meta, so I think a lot of these players are coming into their own now with a strong deck that they played beforehand becoming even stronger. They're a lot more confident playing it in comp than other people would be.
An easy pickup there for DiegoB, who, alongside being a longtime pro and excited to see him in the mix, maybe one of the most universally well-liked pros in the Clash Royale community. Amongst other pros.
Very friendly guy.
I think that anybody who knows him has received a, hey man, I was just thinking about you and I miss you and love to see you soon DM from Diego at some point. So, and if you haven't received that, I'm sorry to let you know that you aren't as well loved.
Big Mega Knight connection there, but also countered by the aggressive hog from Diego. A bit of a trade-in damage going into this. An aggressive mortar though here and with the goblins, he's going to find it difficult to defend this prince, I think, if the bats come in behind it.
Going to go ahead and eat a little bit of goblin work on the left-hand side. No bats behind Adriel's prince.
Adriel opting just to save the elixir. He's up 5 right now. Can he use it? Let's see. DiegoB's main ground defense out of cycle right now, and he also doesn't have in the goblins, so a bandit here could be very difficult to deal with. If he uses his ability, then does a bit of pressure, that'll be the right play for him.
Oh, and that might be one of the worst feelings when you're on Adriel's side. When you queen ability, but that last arrow's already in the air. And DiegoB probably just chuckled when that happened.
Yeah, DiegoB getting away there. I think Adriel could have definitely punished him a lot more, giving up. He was up 5 elixir. I think just a situation where he didn't actually realize he was up so much.
Hog into the left-hand lane. Does get one shot despite the bats and Bandit.
Nice prediction arrows there, killing the miner, and those bats are going to get a lot of damage on tower with no Ice Spirit in hand.
Hog still gets a little bit here. 14-20, 7-22. Diego
It's a very even matchup right now. This is just going to be who defends better at this point. Nice Ice Spirit prediction there, countered by the Prince though. This could be the turning point in the game. Nice miner left, he's got no counter, Bandit to pressure, possibly a wall break is in behind.
And that's
Adriel being
a
spread in there.
Big connection from that mortar.
This is a very tense game. This is where you either freeze or you tend to one of the best players in the world.
Well, we'll find out what these two guys do. Of course, DiegoB already has that World Championship under his belt. Adriel would love to get a nice one, and that's a great Ice Spirit pickup, but does give up one shot from the miner. 2 muskies, a mortar, and is there a Hog Rider alongside all of this? The mortar does not touch the tower. That was absolutely massive.
Adriel gonna need a miner here.
And
does the Hog get a hit?
Can it? Can it? And it does. 188. EQ in.
Log needs to
Diego.
come down. Arrows.
Ooh!
Wow.
DiegoB just barely escapes by 31 HP.
Great plays from both sides there. It seems like both countered each other. Both didn't have the right troops to counter them. But just overall, I think what won it in there was that last Hog hit. That Mega Knight coming down, not able to jump on the Hog, instead having to use the bats and just take that hit. Won him the game.
Here we go, taking a look at the end. And 258 to 564, and that mortar not connecting, right? It really felt like that mortar could have been the game changer. And then this Hog Rider just slides on through. It's the Ice Spirit keeping the DPS just low enough to get the Hog on. Miner goes to the front, can't beat the log, and man, that miner just ready to get that tower down, but could not do it. And now we go into our game number 3 all tied up. It's going to be Ruben versus DiegoB, so 2 longtime, very popular pros. Ruben is such an interesting piece to the Clash Royale esports puzzle SB because there was a time, and a not insignificant amount of time, where people said Ruben is the best player on the planet. In the middle of 2019 era, and then as he led, completely carried in 2020, Team Queso to the full team effort, to be fair, to the No-Tilt League Special Edition before CRL kicked off in 2020, and then completely carried Team Queso to a World Championship in the latter half of that year. And, it's kind of been up and down, but it does seem like he is back to being a danger. I'm kind of curious about your thoughts on Ruben right now.
Yeah, I think I think he's currently at university right now, so he's got a lot of other priorities on his mind. So beforehand, he had a lot more free time. He's always got the ability to come back and come back with a bang and be on top. But I think he's just got other focuses, so that is why he's not been as prominent in the scene recently. But he can always come back and perform well in one of these competitions. And all you need to do this year is win 1 monthly finals. I know that's very hard, but for Ruben, that's achievable. So he could end up making monthlies and not really playing too much.
And big thanks to Sandy for coming out and moderating. Do appreciate everyone who, whether you're watching on Twitch or YouTube, comes and volunteers your time to help keep this stream fun and friendly.
So it looks like we're going to see another slightly similar matchup to when we saw Betfas versus EGW. Diego won't have the mirror though, so that might be slightly more difficult, especially with the King 2 activation early on from Ruben.
Golden Knight sets up behind these skeletons. And Mother Witch should get protected nicely here. And great poison value. Flying Machine comes out immediately after. And that NATO almost felt more to get the Flying Machine into the poison than anything else. Ruben will turn that around last second. I think he's going to go ahead and eat one ghost shot here. No, does not, as the King Tower gets involved in the conversation. And the High Flying Machine getting the attention from the bird rather than the poison. On our way into sudden death overtime. Lead currently for DiegoB, 24-14 to 27-65. Another easy pickup there against the Miner for the former Liquid World Champion.
Diego going to struggle to get damage here, heading into double. Ruben's going to set up his defenses, and without the mirror, it's going to be harder for him. Where we saw EGW mirror that Flying Machine, he doesn't have that same option.
And these Flying Machines just keep getting played in the middle and keep not having protection. We'll see if DiegoB mimics what we saw in an earlier game today, where he plays that Flying Machine and goes for the immediate protection with the Zappies. The only issue for him is that poison creates problems.
A big Golden Knight dash as well, just favoring the lead for Ruben in this situation. Possibly seeing a Royal Hogs come down now that Bomb Tower's out of play. Instead just defends. Decides to stack up in that lane. I think this is going to be the downfall of Diego though.
Miner in. Golden Knight has a serious dash opportunity. Will dash onto everything. Poison value along with it. And once again, it's the Poison NATO combination to clean all of it up and allow absolutely zero opportunity for a counter push.
Yeah, great gameplay here from Ruben. Playing the poison before even the Flying Machine and the Mother Witch has been played, knowing that if Diego plays it outside the poison, he just nados that back in and gets even more value from it.
And here we go. Pigs in. Bomb Tower needs to get cycled back out, and it does. And this should be nice and shut down. Great play by Ruben. And, you know, it's interesting. We're so used to thinking of NATO pulling stuff together for Golden Knights, or even in older metas, NATO pulling stuff together for fireballs or rockets, things like that. But, you know, NATO pulling stuff together for poison, not the most common play, at least outside of top gameplay. Not a thing that you think about often, NATOing stuff back into a poison at the end of it. But I think that's one of the things that kind of makes Ruben special, right? I remember during the Barb Hut meta, which is one of the worst things that ever happened to competitive Clash Royale, at least as a caster, by the way, was the Barb Hut meta. I absolutely despised it. But Ruben was the first person in competitive that we saw consistently once they, right around the same time of the Barb Hut meta, is when they changed the Royal Ghost to float across the river. And so we saw Ruben begin predicting Barb Huts with Royal Ghosts in the middle to go get the Barb Hut off the board. Right, so little pieces of gameplay, and you can talk about his micro, which is great, and his macro, which is also very good. But it's those little pieces of gameplay, just things a tiny bit differently, that are what make Ruben, in my opinion, a very special player.
Yeah, and it makes him unpredictable as well. You know, usually when you're playing these matchups as a pro, you get to routinely know, well, this is going to happen now, this is going to happen now. But when you play against a top player and you see them do things differently a little bit, it can throw you off your game and get you out the swing of how the matchup's meant to be played.
Jack Inglis, who once ate an entire jar of pickles, wants to know your favorite colors. And I see a lot of purples in the chat, and I want to go out and say here that my favorite color, also purple. So I love that we can all come together here and agree on truth, which is that purple is the best color.
I'm going to say it too. Purple's my favorite color too. This is a real good bonding session here for everyone on stream.
Aw, this is special. Everyone, hug the air and pretend it's everybody else. Group hug. That was nice.
Wow, I feel all warm and fuzzy inside. This just the power of the Clash Royale community, hey?
I'm I've been surreptitiously taking bites of the lunch that Mrs. Slayton brought me. It is a microwavable orange chicken with rice, in case anyone's curious.
Sounds very nice. Oh, and a great ability there from Ruben, or slash, perhaps a mistake by Hasiel. It reflects the bomb tower damage and then the log, and this looks like it's game over already.
Oh, the goblins, the goblins after that by Hasiel, maybe trying to avoid the log prediction, but then the goblins of Ruben just ran forward and said, "Well, no, but we're also goblins, so be dead now."
We're still here.
And yeah, that went horrifically from top to bottom for Hasiel. Ruben comes out with the tower down, plus a 2 elixir advantage, and
just throws the game instantly.
Yeah.
You don't normally see that in comp, but I think there wasn't much chance. But still, at least give it a go, I think.
I'm generally a fan of give it a go, but I've also had some players talk about the mentality of, you know what, don't bang your head against, don't kick water uphill. You know, if it's actually done, all the way done, just reset and don't spend the emotional energy on it. So
I can see both sides, definitely.
And seeing a lot
Ruben here, though.
Well, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Ruben here, 2-0 in COF so far. Can he get the sweep?
One person said, I like red and blue, and I am not Groot makes the very important point that red and blue is purple. So it looks like we all agree purple's the best, which is pretty awesome. Purple and black are my 2 big ones, and it does harken back to being a Sacramento Kings fan. The colors of my team.
It is black a color though. I think it's technically a shade. I don't want to bring up technicalities here, but I don't think we can call black a color.
Wow, this is a huge call out, folks. People in the stream world, is black a color, or is black
and
a
white's
shade?
a shades?
Wow. This is, and let's see, Rafi Nahom saying Manchester red and black. No surprises there, Rafi, that you're liking those red Manchester colors. But this is the Morten question, because in my opinion, black is a color. You have to dye clothes black. I could say white isn't a color. White is like the absence of color, maybe, because you don't dye something white, or do you? I guess you could dye something, but like, you know, cotton comes out white, but there's no. And Noah Murphy saying black is the absence of all color.
I'm seeing black as not a color from a few comments here. I don't want to stir the pot here, but you know, it's an argument to be made. Black is the shade from Jack Anglis, regular chatter, and he did ask the question what our favorite color was. So,
if you say white, you think of the color white. This is just I'd say they should be counted as colors. And Akash saying it's a shade. Black is shade. Sorry, Devlop. Absolutely, completely betrayed here. Depends if you're talking pigment or light, says Chris S. That's actually a good point. Pigment or light. Now we're changing things up. Now we're getting even more precise. Giga Chad says black is a mix of all colors. If I would trust anyone to know that, I would trust someone with a giant chin. That's for sure. Black is shreddering color. I'm not sure what I mean there, but I guess if like you mean like black is the color of the Nemesis and the Ninja Turtles, or black is, I don't really get you there. 50 Shades of Black. I think that was not the movie you're thinking of there, folks.
What's your favorite shade then, Rich? That's the real question.
I prefer whatchamacallit? What are they called? Not blinds. Shutters, personally.
Right.
So,
right. I actually prefer Ray-Bans. So they're my favorite shades.
Oh, how dare you!
Oh, have I started something on stream? Well, I haven't got the glasses yet. I haven't got them to wear, so how can I know?
You know what?
I'm going to assume that they're the best, but you know.
We're gonna have to make some calls. And Maha Call says many do consider black to be a color because you combine other things to create it on paper, but in technical sense, black and white are not colors; they're shades. They augment colors according to Google.
And Google's always right, folks.
And pumping up once more is Ruben. Interesting choice here of Ruben to go with this deck against this player, and maybe he's thinking that Arden is just a little tiltable here. I mean,
Giant Skeleton on tower.
And
I don't think he'll be able to punish. Although these evolves will be hard to stop without a giant skeleton in hand.
Oh boy. And then the bandit just keeping this musketeer on the board too is Ruben. Heal spirit for the bandit. Bandit dashes. And Ruben's just doing everything to get in front of this muskie. The archer does finally go, but then kaboom! Tower down, courtesy of the royal ghost. And
hey, this Ruben guy is quite good.
So that's a question here. Is 3M back? Because we've seen a ton of it this last week. Relative to the last, 2 years.
Yeah, it's one of those cards that, because it pairs well with the Golden Knight, and also the archers are coming in that kind of are a replacement for the Hunter, in which what made it strong before, we could see it come back into competition, I think. And especially with duels, it doesn't take up too many cards.
Yeah, I mean, we're not even in duels, and we're seeing Ruben back to another 3 Musketeers. Loon in, and that's a good snowball here. Those Muskies aren't going to do much. Archer's trying to stop the Loon from anything else. That's going to be a connection for the Balloon. Will it get the second drop? I don't believe so, and that should be enough for Ruben to sew things up here. And that is a brilliant performance by Ruben for CALALAS to come out and give his team this big-time first win.
Yeah, tanking that giant skeleton hit was very good play there from Ruben, knowing that he was able to counterattack on the right side while still keeping the left tower, albeit low HP. He was able to take the right tower and then just defend from there on out.
And we talk about Ruben and talk about where his level is and things like that. You're still a guy who's capable of coming out and putting together a really nice King of the Hill sweep here. So you gotta love seeing him play at a high level, and especially when you talk about Ruben playing well, it's Ruben playing well under pressure. And I think that's one of those differences people might not take into account, right? Are there players who are technically better right now than a guy like Ruben? And the answer might be yes. But how many players are as cool under pressure as Ruben is? That's a different question, I believe.
And that's why I favor people like Surge as well, because they've just been there so many times that they're not going to freeze in these situations. They're going to thrive off it. And it can really make the difference in comp situations.
And people are asking, what does CALALAS mean in the chat? I have no idea what it means. So
I remember asking, and I've been told an answer. However, I cannot remember it. This was when I played for them in a tournament a few months ago, and I asked the owner, and I've just completely forgotten.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah, so
if anyone can figure that out. I was told it, and I did know it for a while, and I don't know it anymore. Also, I found $5 to finish off that story. Lineup for set 2, Chivas Esports, Anaban, Hasiel, Pompeyo. Pompillo is awake and ready to play. There we go. And then CALALAS with Pedro, Vitor, and Sub. So we'll see Pedro coming out to kick things off for that squad. Which team is in first place? PUIGINS? Yes, they are currently in first. And it looks like they're going to be very difficult to dislodge from that first place position. Hey, Devlot, thank you very much. Glad to have you here. J-Rex, Molite is insane under pressure. Always wins from lower bracket. I mean, yes. Let's just take Mo out of any conversation about things. Like, we put Mo in one thing, and then we have other conversations outside of him. Let's see. CALALAS is passion fruit in Spanish. So says Mahakal. So we'll see. Maybe that's truth. So that's interesting. Like shock passion, maybe? Does that ring a bell to you?
Yeah. But, no, but I don't remember anything, so I think it wouldn't anyway.
And for those of you, I saw Giga Chat asking for the live sub count. Our current count is 99,531. No, 99.5. Wait, I'm gonna let it count it off. It's still counting. 99,541 subscribers right now. So we are racing towards that 100,000. Probably will happen Saturday or Sunday.
Pedro here, going with the graveyard deck that we're seeing to be used a lot more just to counter the Mega Knight meta. Anaban going with the minor poison there. It'd be interesting to see, can he get a nado off here on this giant skeleton? Oh, and the death damage gets on tower. A slight misplay from Anaban costs him a lot of damage early on.
I mean, that probably is the most, or one of the most devastating cards to misplay against. There are certainly some, and even though there might be other ones that actually take your full tower in one go, I don't think any other one like emotionally gets you as much as a giant skeleton, because you always feel like it shouldn't have.
Yeah, it shouldn't get that hit, and it's just so much damage. Anaban going with the E-Giant here, and I think this was mainly through the surprise factor, but that surprise factor's gone now that he's played it straight away in a situation where he probably wasn't likely to get damage anyway.
I think he played this a bit yesterday too, this E-Giant, this like combo deck that's half minor control, half E-Giant. This is not the first time I've seen it over the last 2 or 3 days. And I don't know about its success level, but it definitely, I've seen it lose for sure, and maybe partially because the E-Giant was played super early and didn't have that wow factor.
Yeah, and see Anaban there, over defending on the giant skeleton, can't afford to take another hit, possibly overly fearful now because of that first hit. And this just looks like everything's going into death now, into this giant skeleton bomb, into this fisherman, into this hunter. Bad matchup overall, but made even worse by that initial giant skeleton death damage. Pedro here just going to be looking at getting some graveyard hits every now and again, I think, or just defending until the game's over.
E-Giant sets up in the back for Anaban as we go into sudden death overtime. His left-hand tower teetering and continuing to lean like Pisa. The tower, that is, in case, I think the city is actually fine.
Hopefully.
Fair.
Caster's curse, you never know.
Yeah, right? And that's, oh boy.
Giant skeleton on tower.
And one giant skeleton is emotionally devastating. 2 giant skeletons will kind of ruin all your tower. So there you go.
Yeah.
GG, well played. And that gives us the beginning of set number 2 in favor of CALALAS. Let's see. Deck recommendations for Electro Valley. Check out Cashman on YouTube. He's the guy who makes all the deck videos. That's his thing. Let's see. Let me go ahead and mute that bot in the chat. That was fun. It's always enjoyable to see the bots coming in. Pedro, next up for him will be Hasiel. Wait a second. Why is the overlay? Yeah, the overlay is kind of being funky right now. I'll check it out in a second. What's your favorite deck, Rich, of all time or right now? Right now, I'm actually looking for something. I'm trying to decide if I just stick with what I've been playing all season. All season I've been playing the minor poison mighty minor deck and the same deck but with Hoggy Q. So I've been playing that deck primarily. We'll see if that's what I do to end out the season or not. But those have been fun. I enjoy them. Let's go ahead and jump into Pedro versus Hasiel. All time, honestly, I really used to enjoy playing Loon. Loon was really fun. But Loon's just so blah right now.
Hasiel opting to play Mortar against probably the best Mortar player in the game if you do not count Mo right now. So that's an interesting play from him. Pedro looking like he's playing the minor deck that we've saw so many people play.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the meta, you're talking about these decks. And is Pedro, okay, so here's the question. I'm assuming that Pedro, when he's playing the skeletons, we talked about it before, that they are easier when you're playing against Golden Knights. There's no Golden Knight NATO. It's harder to Golden Knight NATO for big chains. How annoyed is he to be playing a Skeletons variation against Mighty Miner versus playing it against Golden Knight?
I think it doesn't change too much. I think the main reason for the Skeletons in this this minor control deck is just an extra cycle version. I think with the Goblins, it slows you down getting to that minor a little bit more. But I'm actually surprised that people aren't playing Goblins more often in this minor NATO deck.
And it's interesting, like when you see this variation, you almost always see skeletons, whereas when you see the variation that Hasiel's playing, you almost always see goblins.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure why that is. I think maybe because in this deck your primary ground defense is Golden Knight, which is a little bit stronger than a Mega Knight in some situations, but I wouldn't be able to put my finger on it other than you cycle a little bit faster.
And
do we see a NATO activation here? Oh, and a great play.
There we go, gets it done. And that's
and that could be the difference.
Yeah, very impactful.
Mm. Hasiel opting just to place a miner in the back, just going for damage rather than knowing that it's going to get countered if he plays it in the safe spot. Probably the best play now, just going for that as much as he can and hoping to get the damage.
Does he play it more into the safe spot in triple elixir where when he can afford to mine or poison?
Yeah, I think he just keeps on switching it as much as he can, because sometimes playing it in the safe spot is also less predictable than playing it in the back, because they would think, oh, he's going to play it in the back. It's all just a mind games miner, I think. And I think a lot of top players now just play miners off feel. It's more just you kind of just know where it's going with like this weird sixth sense, and then you also know where to place it with this weird sixth sense. So I think it's just more based on your rhythm of how you've been playing the miners previously.
So counting off the time before next tower down wins the game, and just like that, all it takes is one. Pedro gets right back into it, courtesy of a Golden Knight NATO combination.
Yeah, and it seems like it's slowly turning into Pedro's favor here, getting those Golden Knights off. Hasiel not really going to be able to do the offensive mortars anymore because it just results in a minor poison on that mortar. Those Golden Knights always aggressive at the bridge, just providing a fear factor, making Hasiel have to think when he's defending the miner.
Ability there, and nice kite of the bird to the opposite lane. That'll be at least somewhat helpful for Hasiel as he goes minor poison this time to the back. Variance from Hasiel on these minor placements has been consistent, and with that he's opened up this lead just a little bit, and man, that poison tick turns me wrong, and suddenly Pedro back in the lead.
Aggressive mortar here from Hasiel, just trying to provide a different attacking ability. Doesn't look like it's going to get on tower though. Good distractions here from Pedro.
And now Pedro just doing his best to defend against these miners, going everywhere at the same time. That one does get on tower again. The minor poisons from Hasiel certainly getting on. That one a missed catch. That was a catch that Hasiel really needed. Not going to get it. GG, well played. Pedro, 2 up, 2 down, and 1 away from finishing off the whole thing with a King of the Hill sweep to end our day. And this, so far, I believe is the day with the most sweeps that we've had, SB.
Yeah, it seems like we've just had very dominant players consistently just absolutely turning over teams. And there's been a lot of 3-0s too. I think it's gone quite fast, even though we've gone to the final set in a few games.
And, you know, I haven't really paid that much attention to it, but I am now appreciating I've castled many people in the past, SB, and now that I'm looking full screen at your setup, just how tidy your room is. A lot of people just don't tidy their room before.
Now I've got to make my bed. I can't have an unmade bed and stuff like that.
So are you typically a tidy person, or do you just tidy it for the stream?
No, I'd say I'm more tidy. Everything's got to be in its place. Like I can't go to sleep if there's stuff on my floor and stuff like that. Generally speaking, I'd say.
Okay. You know, well, I haven't done a tour of my office yet because all the things are in my office. I definitely live a more chaotic life. And I've never been the tidiest person which is why, like, when I work, I have to overcompensate and really schedule everything. Otherwise, I'll just lose it all.
Hey, as long as you're not as bad as AC, because he stayed with me for a night in Finland, and he stayed in the bed next to me, and oh my god, his wardrobe was just his suitcase on the floor everywhere, and I just OCD all over the place. I couldn't deal with it.
Oh yeah, no, AC is a whirlwind. He's a tornado that hits your room, that's for sure. And J-Rex asking, can SB introduce himself briefly? You know what? Here we are on potentially the last game of the day. SB, why don't you introduce yourself as it's been requested?
Okay, yeah, I'm 21. I kind of got into Clash Royale maybe when I was around 15, 16, just playing with friends, and then I had some success with some online competitions and made it to CRL Asia. This was around in like 2018, 2019. I've slowly kind of stepped off in terms of playing competitively, although I do kind of show up here and there from tournaments. Though I'm involved in the community, still watch and still play regularly, just not as much as I did a few years ago.
Well, thank you very much. And here we go into potentially our last game. And just for those of you who were here yesterday, accepting with just 15 seconds left before the window would close, Pompeyo did not fall asleep. Does get us into our potential final game here. Can Pedro end us with a sweep right here? And I see the question, will SB join us tomorrow also? I believe that's the plan for SB to at least join us for part of our stream tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely. I should be able to. Definitely for the first 2 games. I'll have to see based on how late it goes, just because I've got to be up early Monday morning, which means I can't go to bed too late Saturday morning, or else it will just carry on sleep-wise. And yeah, I think it will just come down to that.
And so looking like some 3M for Pompeyo. Pedro setting up all 3 zappies into that left-hand lane.
Yeah, this is something Pompeyo doesn't want to see. Playing 3M and then going into a fireball log, looking like a skeleton king as well from Pedro. A lot of counters, even the tombstone for his E-barbs. It's going to be quite difficult for Pompeyo to break through. It's going to come down to Golden Knights and overwhelming, I think, if he wants to have a chance.
What's Pedro's best practice here against the pump?
This is a difficult one because you can always fireball the first one, but then they'll outcycle you and get back to it. So typically, I'd say if you've got Fireball in hand and you're not down Elixir, Fireball it. If you're down Elixir and you've got Fireball in hand, you're going to just have to tank that pump, because if you Fireball and you're down Elixir, they'll go over 3M and they'll overwhelm you. If you've got no pump and it's single Elixir, I think you've just got to take that, you've just got to deal with it. If it's double Elixir, then you've got a chance at going RG at the bridge. So lots of different scenarios, but I'd say generally speaking, that's what you do in each of those situations.
And there we have it. You see Pedro fireballing when down 1 elixir. An immediate 3M comes out from Pompeyo.
Yeah, double elixir corner for Pedro, which is going to be key. It's going to help him have a chance of getting off this defense, but this Golden Knight with a chain, E-barb's coming down. That tombstone's not going to be optimal if he gets a bar barrel as well, or a spirit like he does. Ability comes down, which could be crucial. And I think he might be okay with getting this defense off, but it's going to be quite tight.
The clog from that ability was absolutely massive. The Musketeer and Ghost will escape, though, and put some real damage on the right-hand side. Fisherman going to do some cleanup work, but now an E-barb escapes to the left, and this is going really, really poorly for Pedro. And it all comes down to the moment that you talked about. Fireballing the pump down Elixir. Immediate response from Pompeyo is to drop the 3M, and a nice win here to keep this one going.
Yeah, and definitely this isn't the best matchup for Pompeyo, so the way he was able to capitalize on Pedro's mistake was definitely something to be proud of.
And I wish I'd captured that moment just to go ahead and highlight it as you talked about it. But either way, just you say it, and literally the moment after, the exact thing happens. So that's why we have you here, is for that sort of insight. Vitor will be up next for Shot CALALAS to see if he can put a cap on this one. Pompeyo, let's see if he keeps on doing some stuff that's a little bit out there. Obviously, 3M is not totally dead right now, because we've seen it play to success a couple times in this competition and played more lately than we've seen in a long time. But still, I wouldn't, if we're doing like circles of meta, I would not put it anywhere near the inner.
No, definitely. I think it's got some very good matchups, but then it can be quite polarizing. But also, 3M with the Golden Knight, it always does give the opportunity to outplay and kind of beat your opponent based on not having the best cycle. So it can be utilized in comp if played correctly.
And here we go, jumping into game number 2. Match point number 2 for Shot CALALAS.
Vitor here is definitely going to be wanting to shut down Pompeyo as quickly as possible before he gets too much momentum. You don't want to be going into a 2-2 against a player who's just won 2 games on the bounce.
You certainly start feeling loose, feeling comfy.
Yeah, looking like E-Giant here from Vitor. It's a lot of people have been playing Fire Spirit in this deck, and I wonder why. Perhaps seeing the minor control from Pompeyo. Could be too early to tell. The Ice Spirit, it's looking very likely. Perhaps a Mortar, because of the Goblins. Or he could be listening to stream, who knows?
Bomb tower control here instead. And that E-Giant going to get some nice reflection
a lot of damage.
Yeah.
It always does more than you think.
I think that's the best description, right? Is that the E-Giant, it always does more than you think.
Yeah, it could be like an advert for it or something.
I mean, these all have slogans, right? Graveyard doing graveyard things. E-Giant, it always does more than you think.
Yeah, get a whole list of these or something like that.
SB, that's what casting's about, is just getting your catchphrases down. Right, I kept it simple.
Yeah.
I went with a really long wow, right? But everyone has to get their stuff together.
Have to start revising, getting my notes ready. Get all the sayings. Maybe a few t-shirts printed with the sayings on. This is going to be a lot of damage here.
Oh boy.
For Vitor. No building in sight. He's just utilizing being up 3 elixir. And interesting, he plays goblins in this mana control deck, just like we were saying.
Boy, and those goblins disappear. And that
Imagine
should
if he had skeletons.
be it. Yeah,
Yeah, looking like it.
Imagine if he's had skeletons. I'm imagining it right now. I'm thinking about it. They are white, which is apparently not a color, it's a shade.
Yep. The shade of skeletons.
Ooh. I've always wondered, like, what's a good, you know, like a good pluralization of a group of things. Right? You know, like a herd of cattle, etc.
Yeah,
a shade of skeletons. I actually like that a lot.
Yeah, we could possibly submit it to like the dictionary or something like that. Try and get it involved. Little Clash Royale promo involved too. Looks pretty safe to say that Vitor's won this game. He definitely used his early elixir advantage to his advantage. In single elixir, this minor deck can struggle if they're down, and Pompeyo definitely did.
And there you have it. CALALAS continuing to put the overall stamp on this competition. PUIGINS 5-0, CALALAS 4-1, I believe is 4-1 is their record. And man, I don't know what that organization is doing to gather all the top talent under one umbrella. But they should do more of that. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you do, huh?
Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and take a look at the standings at the end of day 5. 2 more days remaining. And that, what is that, a wildcat of some sort? Logo on top in our number 1 and number 2 spots. Keep in mind, folks, that while it's not just who's in and who's out that's important, standings are critical. Top 2 positions as we go into the end of our league phase. We'll get a first round bye in our single elimination bracket, which is absolutely huge, both for the money and, of course, to not have to go through that first matchup. So at the moment, that's going to be PUIGINS and CALALAS. Tribe Gaming in third would love to go ahead and try to get the win over CALALAS and take over that spot. We'll see if they're going to be able to do so. Strangers maybe securing their position, I believe securing their position in the top 6 with a really solid performance today and getting that all-important third win. CHIVAS Esports is going to remain right there with just 2 wins. But the big story today, Hype Boys taking down Team Queso and now putting a lot of pressure on Team Queso going into our final couple of days. And I'm just about ready with our matchups for tomorrow. Give me 1 second, and I will have those all nice and loaded up for you. And we can take a look at what our matchups will be. Let's see, where are you for day 6? I just downloaded you day 6. Where are you? Oh, I had it. I had it already. Hold on, folks. I swear I just had it. You know what? I'm just going to do this. Nope. King of production right here, folks. And here we go. Now let's go ahead and bring on our matchups for tomorrow. And so you talk about those standings. SK Gaming versus Hype Boys. SK probably done. Hype Boys would love to just keep that momentum. Again, Hype Boys in control of their own destiny in that number 6 spot. If they win out, they stay in, and they force Team Queso into those bottom 2 spots. Chivas Esports and Strangers, a battle in the middle. Chivas wants to make sure that they don't run into any trouble or fall down even further and have a tough first-round matchup. Tribe versus Puigins. That would be a big win for Tribe if they can get it and jump into the top 2, especially if they can jump into the top 2 and leapfrog over Shot CALALAS. So that's a big one. That's maybe one of the most important matchups of the day tomorrow. And then Team Queso. They are going to need to win out and hope the Hype Boys drop some games. They need to keep on winning and hope Hype Boys drop games if they want to have a shot at making top 6. But our current number 2 team in the way for them at the moment. So that's a tough one for them. SB, of those matches tomorrow, what are you looking forward to the most?
I think it's definitely SK versus Hype Boys, just because I love Hype Boys to get the win. I think they're underdogs in this tournament, and if they get that win, you know, they could be securing their place in the playoffs against a team that you would expect becoming first or second in this competition. Really
fascinating. That's a fascinating choice, and that's how we'll kick off our day. And luckily, you'll be here for that one, as that's one of our 2 first matches. So very happy to have in that one. Again, thank you so much, SB, for being a part of these streams. It's so fun having you here. Can't wait to do more of that tomorrow. For those of you who are looking to find SB on Twitter, hold on. Let me go ahead and throw his link in the chat here. Follow SB on Twitter. Go ahead, check him out. Boom. Here we go. Link in the chat. Link in the chat. Putting that on both Twitch and on YouTube. We'll be back here again tomorrow. SB, any final thoughts before we sign off for the day?
No, just thank you very much for having me. Thank you to chat for all the support. I've really enjoyed casting these games, seeing a lot of great gameplay, and I'm excited to do it all again tomorrow.
Me as well, and everybody, thank you so much for watching. Watching that counter go up is super duper exciting. We're over 99.5, so the push to 100K is so close. It's happening. It's going to be happening very soon. I appreciate all of you being here. If you're on Twitch, as always, stick around. We're going to run and find somebody fun to raid right after this. If you're on YouTube, thanks for watching as always. And, of course, be excellent to each other. Peace.